Mary suddenly regains her memories, realizing this world is the otome game she played in her past life. As the entrance ceremony concludes, her attendant Addie notices her distress and asks if something is wrong with Lady Mary. Collapsing in despair, Mary introduces herself as the villainess destined to lead her entire family into ruin. She resolves that if she is doomed to be an antagonist, she might as well embrace the role thoroughly. Examining her reflection, she identifies her tightly curled silver ringlets as the undeniable trademark of her villainous identity. She recalls how countless beauticians failed to straighten her hair, their scissors defeated by her indestructible drills. Mary accepts that these drills are not a flaw but a necessary feature to fulfill the tragic ending awaiting her. Convinced that her hair proves her destiny, she decides to positively face her downfall rather than futilely trying to evade it. Addie sighs skeptically, asking if she truly expects him to believe her claims about this world being a game. Despite her insistence, Addie flatly declares that he does not believe a single word of her reincarnation story. Mary accepts his doubt with grace but maintains firmly that this is indeed the world of an otome game. Testing her sanity, Addie asks her to state her name, to which she calmly replies, Mary Albert. When asked about her house, Mary excitedly mentions diplomacy and food, but Addie corrects her to focus on her status as a duke's daughter. Addie presses on with his interrogation, demanding to know her goal for the year while noting her previous answers were generic. Furious at his disrespect, Mary screams that he is fired for besieging her with questions and doubting her sanity for years. Addie laughs in relief, noting that her rude outburst proves she is the Lady Mary he knows and loves. He admits he thought her hair drove her crazy, but now realizes her personality shift is due to the memories of her past life. Deciding to believe her unbelievable story, Addie asks why she would willingly play the villainess if she knows it leads to ruin. He stares intensely, waiting for her justification for choosing a path of self-destruction. Mary's resolve hardens as she accepts that this tragic path is simply the way things are meant to be. She cheerfully declares she is diving into the bottomless swamp of ruin because, as an Albert, taking the ruin course is only reasonable. Mary identifies the game as Doki Doki Love Academy, the story of a maiden in love and a prince from her memories. A heavy silence falls between them as the ridiculous nature of the game's title hangs in the air. Addie cringes at the title, but Mary casually abbreviates it to DD to make it sound less ridiculous. When Addie questions her knowledge, she accidentally reveals she knows the title of his adult magazine, Big Tits Academy. Chaos erupts as Addie screams at her for entering his room and reading his elegant literature, while she apologizes for seeing the explicit content. The argument leaves both of them panting and wheezing, exhausted by their sudden outburst of energy. Regaining her composure, Mary reiterates her plan to corner the protagonist and face retaliation, and Addie agrees to accompany her. Addie pledges his loyalty, admitting he doesn't understand why she is sprinting backward toward destruction but will follow her regardless. Mary triumphantly cheers for the ruin course, declaring she won't have the last laugh. While Addie sighs at her enthusiasm, Mary confirms the plan with a smile, verifying that they are indeed checking up on the game's protagonist. Addie admits he usually skips the opening sequence but points out that Alicia should be passing by this very spot. The protagonist appears with silky hair and a radiant aura, and Mary instantly recognizes her from the game. Mary notes the blonde hair and purple eyes that signify royalty, while Addie bluntly comments that she is cute. Mary scolds her attendant for nearly spoiling the game's ending where Alicia becomes queen, warning him to keep quiet. With a dramatic flourish, Mary steps forward to introduce herself as the enemy who will disrupt Alicia's love life. She flips her hair and declares she is Mary of the Albert House, asking if Alicia is a student here. Mary arrogantly mocks Alicia for asking her name first, though internally she panics about being too familiar. Recovering her composure, Mary sneers that she won't be friends with a commoner, prompting Alicia to introduce herself. Mary coldly cuts her off, refusing to engage with the protagonist's friendly demeanor. To Mary's confusion, Alicia thanks her for speaking to her like a friend, completely misinterpreting the insult. Alicia asks for directions to the dormitory, and Addie helpfully points out she is heading toward the cafeteria. Mary provides a rapid-fire explanation of the route, while Addie simplifies it to just the second building. Feigning concern, Mary warns Alicia that teachers are leaving early and she might not make it in time. Alicia thanks them with a bright smile, leaving Addie to remark that Mary was just being kind rather than villainous. The next day at lunch, Mary prepares to execute a routine event from the game to flaunt her wealth. She sighs, wondering if she really must act like the vain nobles who treat others with disdain. Addie points out that Mary never shows off or demands expensive items, questioning her resolve. Mary insists she simply buys what she wants, prompting Addie to ask what she desires most right now. She deadpans that she wants a certain someone's letter of dismissal. Mary interrogates Addie about why her dismissal letters keep disappearing, but he feigns total ignorance. Addie leans in close to deny the accusation, while Mary suspects a dwarf in her room is stealing them. Shifting the topic, Addie asks what his mistress wants to eat right this moment. Her demeanor instantly brightens as she shouts that she wants croquettes. Addie immediately shushes her, reminding her that a noble lady cannot be seen craving commoner food. At the crowded cafeteria, Mary carries her own tray, and Addie teases that a true villainess would have servants do it. Mary grumbles about the long line and the ridiculously expensive prices, acting more like a commoner than a noble. Addie presents a covered dish, and Mary prepares to show off her extravagant meal to the masses. He whispers that he would never step foot in such a noisy place if she hadn't insisted on coming. Mary excitedly declares she loves the cafeteria because she can't get these expensive meals at home. They spot Alicia wandering with a tray, and Addie hints that this is the perfect opportunity. Mary notices the modest bag Alicia is holding and realizes she brought a packed lunch. Addie urges her forward, signaling that this is the chance they have been waiting for. Mary plans to sneer at Alicia's meager lunchbox by contrasting it with her own luxurious meal. With a dramatic reveal, Mary lifts the lid to display a massive fresh seafood bowl. Addie immediately shuts the lid, telling her that such a dish is absolutely out of the question. Mary realizes a messy seafood bowl isn't enviable or ladylike, and worries Alicia might not even like foreign food. Smoothly intervening, Addie offers to switch meals, claiming he suddenly feels like eating seafood. Mary pouts, accusing him of lying since he usually hates raw fish and is just judging her choices. Addie forces the switch, handing her his meal while Mary grumbles about him talking behind her back. Mary chuckles at Addie's awkward retreat as he carries away the seafood bowl he hates, leaving her to reluctantly settle for the gourmet steak. She indulges in a decadent lamb fillet steak served with foie gras, dramatically thanking the master for the generous food allowance that funds her luxury. Amidst the cafeteria chatter, Alicia walks by looking nervous, and Mary spots her chance to intervene. Mary boldly intercepts the protagonist, asking with a deceptively sweet smile if she may sit next to her. Startled by the sudden request from a noble, Alicia jolts in surprise before politely inviting Mary to take a seat. Mary notices that Alicia has brought a packed lunch but remains motionless, questioning why she isn't eating or ordering a la carte. Alicia clenches her skirt in shame and confesses she is afraid of making a mistake because she never properly learned table manners. Mary internally questions the game's gloominess before sneering that a commoner couldn't possibly know manners, lifting her utensils to demonstrate. The protagonist stares in wide-eyed awe as Mary begins to eat, interpreting the villainous display as a graceful lesson. Addie watches from a distance with a resigned expression, realizing his mistress's attempt at intimidation is failing spectacularly. Instead of feeling insulted, Alicia blushes with admiration and thinks Mary is showing her how it's done, forcing Mary to abandon her villainous act. A gentle, knowing smile crosses Addie's face as he observes the unintentional bond forming between the two girls. Meanwhile, Addie forces himself to eat the seafood bowl to maintain the ruse, grimacing as he complains that the taste is undeniably fishy. Mary Albert reflects on her destiny to interfere with the heroine's love life and ultimately fall into ruin. She tries to explain the mechanics of otome games to Addie, insisting that she must interfere with Alicia's romance starting now. Mary snaps at Addie to close his book, but he merely mocks her by comparing the culprit in his story to her past life. Demanding to know their first move, Mary gets corrected by Addie on their social hierarchy before she threatens to tell her father. Addie laughs off her threat and asks about Alicia's love life, prompting Mary to indignantly remind him of her status as a duke's daughter. Regaining composure, Mary explains that Alicia is unconsciously raising flags with 3 candidates, particularly the student council president. She introduces Patrick Dice, a high-spec noble with an icy attitude whose route is notoriously difficult to conquer. Mary observes that while Alicia hasn't officially entered Patrick's route, she seems interested in him, much like many other ladies. Addie praises her thorough research, noting that if things continue naturally, there wouldn't be any problem at all. To Addie's shock, Mary reveals that Alicia talks to her profusely and considers her a friend, making it impossible to act villainous to her face. Shaking off her hesitation, Mary declares that they will proceed with interfering now that they understand Alicia's situation. She vows to learn from the DDLA, noble villainous example, using her family status and every trick in the book to obstruct Alicia. When Addie asks about their target, Mary reveals Alicia is in town visiting the person who helped her transfer. Mary laments that she didn't even have to stalk her target because the friendly Alicia simply invited her along. Suddenly remembering a pivotal game event, Mary realizes this is the perfect opportunity to interfere right now. She recalls the specific scene where Alicia sees Patrick and the villainess interacting cordially in a carriage, causing the heroine to worry. Mary confidently plans to invite Patrick for a ride home to recreate the scene, but freezes as a realization hits her. The fatal flaw in her plan is revealed. They commute to school by bicycle, not by carriage. Addie defends the bicycles for their efficiency compared to the slow carriage route, but Mary calls it ridiculous. A horrified Mary realizes she has screwed up, as a true noble villainess would never be caught riding a commoner's vehicle. Refusing to invite Patrick to ride a bike, she frantically asks if they should return to the manor to prepare a carriage. Rejecting the idea of retreat, Mary fires herself up and declares she will force Patrick to ride the bike regardless of the impropriety. Addie resigns himself to the inevitable disaster, promising to gather her ashes after she crashes and burns. The camera zooms in on the mechanics of the bicycle as the scene begins. Mary stares in disbelief, shocked that a high noble like Patrick would actually consider riding a commoner's vehicle. She enthusiastically explains the custom modifications, pointing out the basket and rack to a fascinated Patrick. Patrick inspects the strange machine and asks for instructions on how to properly ride it. Panic sets in as Mary worries that riding tandem might be illegal and could provoke a lawsuit from the dice house. She quickly covers her anxiety by claiming she heard it was fun from Alicia, using the protagonist as a shield. Mary realizes that Patrick's interest in a commoner's vehicle is definitive proof of Alicia's influence on him. She notes with a heavy heart that his love is far deeper and more genuine than anything portrayed in the game. Watching the scene unfold, Mary finds this deviation from the original script surprisingly interesting. She convinces herself that her plan to create a romantic misunderstanding will absolutely work. Observing the proximity of the pair, she calculates whether the specific misunderstanding she planned will take root. Mary violently shakes off her doubts, resolving to see her Albert House scheme through to the bitter end. She determines that Addie will serve as the noble sacrifice for this operation. Suddenly, Patrick signals for them to stop, bringing the bike to an abrupt halt. He grabs the handlebars, admitting that Alicia's words piqued his curiosity about the vehicle. Patrick laughs heartily and declares he has an important matter to discuss with Addie. Mary fumes in the background as Patrick interrupts her perfect plan with his sudden interest. She demands to know why Addie stopped, but he insists he cannot disobey a direct order from Patrick. Addie explains the harsh reality of the social hierarchy, placing Patrick far above himself. Mary realizes with a shock that she ranks lower than Patrick in Addie's priority list because of her father. She sighs, accepting the situation with a defeated, "all right." Mary decides to let go of her anger, realizing that being soft on Addie just makes him more hopeless. Patrick hops on the bike and rides effortlessly with Alicia behind him, impressing everyone with his instant mastery. Meanwhile, Mary bumps into Addie's back as their own ride comes to a clumsy, uncoordinated halt. Addie tells her to hold on properly, while Mary laments that she has lost both the battle and the war. With a startled cry, she wraps her arms around Addie's waist to steady herself against the wobble. Her heart pounds in her chest, and Addie anxiously asks if she is all right. Addie freezes, acutely aware of the closeness and the awkwardness of the situation. Mary violently elbows him in the ribs, taking out her frustration on her poor attendant. She threatens to send him to the hospital while Patrick and Alicia watch, mistaking the violence for intimacy. Patrick offers to walk Alicia home, leaving the chaotic duo behind. Mary trudges homeward, wondering what the point of her elaborate scheme even was. The atmosphere is set with sparkling champagne and the elegant melody of a violinist playing for the guests. Mary vows to completely take the wind out of that girl's sails during the night's festivities. When Addie suggests keeping her villainy in moderation, Mary retorts that she must act out so the girl can retaliate against her later. Showing her resolve, she turns dramatically and declares she has no choice but to be a villainess tonight. Mary reveals she forcefully invited the protagonist to the Albert House's annual party celebrating the Duke's birthday. She explains the game event where she flaunts the escort with the highest love parameter and mocks the protagonist's borrowed dress. The plan is to humiliate Alicia by highlighting their difference in status until the poor girl leaves in tears. As she details the finale of the event, Addie asks who her escort is, causing Mary to freeze as she realizes she forgot to ask anyone. Recovering quickly, she asserts that Patrick will surely come since his love parameter should be the highest right now. Addie pities her upon realizing the game version of Mary likely took her frustration out on her attendant after being abandoned by the escort. Mary bounces with confidence, claiming her dress proves she is a beautiful and intelligent lady ready to deliver a strong hit. Addie blushes and stammers that the dress looks good on her, prompting a confused Mary to ask if something is wrong. Mary sighs in relief, admitting she had the dress tailored specifically to compete and needed confirmation that it suited her. Addie notes the bold design displays absolute confidence, while Mary secretly recalls seeing it on a screen in her past life. Mary laughs at Addie, who spurts out his drink and admits he was caught off guard by her sudden transformation. As the protagonist arrives, Addie notes she is wearing a light pink dress that appears unexpected to the other guests. He ruthlessly critiques the attire, describing the borrowed dress as old, out of fashion, and completely unrefined. Addie's face darkens as he struggles to find words for the disastrous fashion sense, calling it unspeakably unrefined. He explains that otome games keep the protagonist ordinary to make her relatable to players, avoiding overly gorgeous dresses. While Mary dresses with opposite elegance, Addie argues that Alicia's unpolished look is calculated to evoke empathy for a frivolous girl. Alicia steps into view, wearing a frilly dress and holding a parasol that clashes with the evening atmosphere. Mary and Addie stand in stunned silence, their expressions blank as they witness the fashion disaster firsthand. Mary arrives at the night ball wielding a parasol that garnered unanimous bad reviews, her eccentric fashion choice signaling impending doom. She immediately confronts the protagonist about her garish, outdated dress, questioning what on earth is shining upon her. Mary screams in horror at the misplaced corsages covering vital spots, demanding to know if the girl wants to be shot. Addie attempts to intervene, but Mary snaps her fingers and takes over, refusing to let such a fashion disaster stand. She deftly adjusts the dress, loosening the fit to ensure the girl can actually breathe. Mary orders Addie to braid the girl's hair and advises her to remove the corsage so she can eat delicious food freely. Taking full control, Mary asks to change the look a bit and dives into the makeover. The girl stares intently at Mary, captivated by her focus. She realizes that despite the villainous act, Mary possesses the noble dignity and compassion of the queen in her youth. Mary finishes the look, declaring that how one wears clothes matters far more than whether they are new or old. Addie validates the transformation by telling the girl she looks really cute. The girl marvels at her new hairstyle, praising Addie for his skillful hands. He smiles and attributes his skill to his duty as an attendant who must be ready for anything. A heavy silence falls as Mary glares at them, clearly unamused by the praise. She angrily clarifies that she does not wear alloy drills by choice, while Addie notes they are never disheveled. When asked if the drills are for her father's sake, Mary becomes gloomy and demands they drop the topic. Her attention shifts as she notices something the girl is holding. The girl reveals a small bouquet she bought with her limited funds for the head of the Albert house. Mary scoffs, declaring that a commoner could never buy anything capable of pleasing her father. Addie notes her rapid switch back to villainy but encourages her to deliver the gift anyway. While Mary outwardly refuses, Addie realizes she is internally praising the bouquet's splendid colors and the girl's cuteness. She continues her convoluted logic, comparing the humble bouquet to the dazzling venue. Addie reassures the trembling girl that the master is kind and will be delighted by the gift. He quotes his master's creepy philosophy that the existence of young girls is a gift in itself, giving the girl a very bad feeling. Addie smiles brightly while Mary turns away, visibly disturbed. Despite the creepiness, the girl resolves to go and give the flowers to him. Mary sighs in exhaustion, lamenting that she didn't want to hear such things about her family. Lenector appears to introduce themselves as the cleaner and redrawer of the manga. Duke Albert accepts birthday wishes from a guest who asks if she is Mary's friend. The Duke graciously thanks her and confirms the connection. He expresses his delight that Mary has such an honest friend despite her unique personality. Alicia blushes with joy and enthusiastically confirms her kindness. Watching from the shadows, Addie asks Mary if she witnessed the heartwarming interaction. Mary peeks intensely from her hiding spot and whispers her father's name, confirming she saw everything. She realizes that her father failed to deduce Alicia's royal identity despite the color of her eyes. Mary attributes this oversight to his regular interactions with the royal family. Addie praises the master's magnanimous nature for his kindness toward Alicia. Mary shrewdly notes that Addie only noticed the truth because he knows the game's existence. Furious at his undivided admiration for her father, Mary demands he direct some loyalty toward her. Addie ignores her outburst and casually asks for her opinion on the Duke's casual wear. Mary is caught off guard and stammers that a more perfect relationship would result from that dynamic. Internally, she finds it sickening that an adult man like Addie is fawning over her 40-year-old father. She decides this is not the time to find fault with his behavior. Mary spirals into anxiety over her father's comment about her unique personality and his surprise at her having friends. She worries her ruin is set in stone but decides to follow the game in hopes of a deterrence. Physically shaking herself to calm down, Mary tries to regain her composure. Addie teases her about having her hierarchy wrong, earning a sharp glare from his mistress. Mary abruptly silences him, warning that now is not the time to worry about such things. She spots Patrick and greets him politely before immediately scolding him for his eccentric behavior. Patrick sighs at the accusation, but Mary flips her hair and calls him rude for questioning her. He facepalms and sighs again, prompting Mary to snap that he wouldn't have to sigh if he just behaved himself. Patrick chuckles at her attitude while Mary huffs in annoyance at his dismissal. As Patrick walks away, Mary warns him not to meddle again and asserts her authority over her attendant. She fumes internally that Patrick treats Addie with too much familiarity for a mere attendant. Patrick sighs with a smile as he looks back at the pair, clearly amused by their dynamic. Addie comments that he would love to meet a well-matched person for Mary if one exists. Patrick pats Addie on the shoulder and agrees that Lady Mary is too much for him to handle. Patrick smiles conspiratorially at Addie, and Addie agrees with the unspoken sentiment. They both acknowledge that Patrick is the only one capable of being her equal. Turning back to Mary, Patrick apologizes and asks her to compromise for the evening. He reveals that her father specifically asked him to be her escort tonight. Mary analyzes the political connection. Noting the Dice family is second only to the Alberts, she realizes it is unsurprising for the son of the Dice family to escort the Albert daughter. She reflects that mentioning Patrick's name is safe because she harbors no romantic feelings for him. Mary feels comfortable acting the perfect lady with someone she trusts and who society deems suitable. Patrick notices her pensive silence and asks if something is wrong. Mary quickly denies it, assuring him that she is fine. He formally offers his hand and asks if she will do him the honor of letting him escort her. Mary accepts his hand and agrees to the arrangement. As they walk out to applause, Mary muses that she never planned to ask anyone to be her escort. The crowd whispers that they are a perfect match. As they enter the ballroom, Mary decides that unlike the game version of herself, she will not force a reluctant partner to join her. The crowd murmurs in awe as they turn to witness the arrival of a notable figure entering the ballroom. Alicia gasps in surprise while Patrick stands stoically beside her, watching the scene unfold with interest. Patrick informs Alicia that she is currently observing the daughter of the prestigious Albert house. Mary observes that her actions seem ineffective, realizing Patrick only appeared because his love parameter is the highest. She reflects on how a country girl swept him away while other noblewomen fled, convinced they were too ill-matched to deserve him. Mary admits that every woman, including herself, has fantasized about Patrick Dice, the cold yet secretly affectionate faultless prince. Although he fits the image of a storybook prince perfectly, Mary confesses she can never picture herself standing by his side no matter how much she yearns. Patrick asks if something is wrong, prompting Mary to question her own lack of romantic euphoria compared to other girls. Patrick sharply retorts that his feelings are none of her business, but Mary catches him stealing glances at the audience. A realization strikes Mary as she notes with surprise that she does not feel the slightest bit of jealousy toward him. Addie praises her performance, declaring that her act was exactly what he expected from his lady. Patrick invites her to entertain the guests, admitting he is referring to both the dance and her skillful evasion of their conversation. He orders Addie to watch over the unpredictable Alicia, causing Mary to chuckle at his obvious concern for the country girl. Patrick sympathizes that they both have it rough, while Addie struggles to contain the cats he is secretly carrying. Addie explains that Mary cannot ignore the guests who traveled far to celebrate her father's birthday party. He reveals a cat perched on his head that wanted to join the fun after watching the dance, then instructs Alicia to follow him. Addie watches the pair from a distance, admitting that there is not much he can teach her about dancing. Mary recalls the moment she asked Addie to teach Alicia, only for Patrick to intervene and take over the lesson himself. She watches in awe as Alicia transforms before her eyes, resembling a beautiful princess straight out of a fairy tale. Mary rigorously coaches Alicia on posture and confidence, threatening that the next ball will be filled with outdated dresses if she fails. The couple shares a tender moment on the dance floor, radiating happiness and affection. Mary confirms that the glowing light indicates a special CG event, proving that Alicia has successfully entered Patrick's romantic route. She grins mischievously while declaring that the kind-hearted Alicia is the perfect partner to support the great Mr. Patrick. Addie questions Mary's obsession with their love life, but she insists that she cannot imagine anyone else standing by Patrick's side. Mary reasons that Alicia becoming queen will stabilize the Dice family and that her naive nature will soften Patrick's rigid thinking. She concludes that if events continue to progress smoothly, the two of them will undoubtedly end up together. Addie senses her hesitation and presses her to explain the reservation hiding behind her words. Mary reveals the grim reality that if the world follows the game's storyline, she becomes engaged to Patrick before he can be with Alicia. Alicia panics upon realizing how late it is after organizing the library, knowing she must hurry home immediately. She stops in her tracks when she discovers a male student sleeping soundly on a library desk. Patrick wakes up and casually greets her, causing Alicia to jump in sheer surprise. He groggily wipes his mouth while Alicia stares at him in stunned silence. The scene shifts to the inevitable future where Mary and Patrick's hands are joined in engagement. They walk down the aisle as a noble couple while Alicia can only watch from the sidelines. While the crowd offers congratulations, Alicia is left heartbroken by the arrangement of the noble world. Back in the present, Addie looks at Mary with disgust and calls her nasty for setting up such a cruel scenario. Mary defends herself by claiming she is merely fulfilling her role as the villainess who obstructs the heroine. Addie sits down and asks if this means she intends to proceed with the engagement to follow the story. He stares her down and asks point-blank if she actually doesn't want to marry Lord Patrick. Mary threatens to stab him if he repeats that, vehemently denying any romantic desire for her friend. Addie suggests that if she does nothing, the story might deviate, sparing her from a forced marriage. Mary counters that the game's plot is absolute and will force the events to happen regardless of her will. Addie concedes the point, referencing how her hair drills defy all attempts by beauticians to straighten them. Mary gazes out the window with a melancholy look, resigning herself to the flow of the game's timeline. She reasons that even without her interference, their families would inevitably arrange the match for political gain. Mary sips her tea and argues that Patrick is a perfect match for her lineage and they have a pleasant friendship. Addie probes deeper, asking if she has perhaps resigned herself to this marriage for a long time. A heavy silence falls between them as Addie's question hangs unanswered in the air. Mary admits that between a stranger and Patrick, choosing a trusted friend is simply the better option. As predicted, the engagement is announced and spreads like wildfire through the academy and high society. Patrick teases Mary about the jealousy she must be facing, while she looks exhausted by the villainous act. Mary wonders aloud how he will reject her, confirming that Patrick has called her to the classroom for the event. She muses on the irony of being rejected by a man she doesn't like, recalling the game's awful humiliation. When Addie looks concerned, Mary assures him she is unhurt because she already knows the outcome. Addie argues that Alicia might step aside, but Mary dismisses the idea due to the status difference. Mary believes Alicia will give up, unaware that Addie is projecting his own feelings onto the situation. Addie suddenly snaps, shouting that true love means you cannot stand to see your beloved drop to your level. He speaks with intense passion, declaring that if you love someone, you wish for them to be with their equal. Clenching his fist, Addie admits he cannot help but wish for them to walk a path of happiness that everyone blesses. Realizing he has said too much, Addie panics and claims he is talking about someone he knows. He abruptly sprints away to buy a drink, leaving a confused Mary behind in the hallway. Mary's heart pounds from the sudden outburst, but she composes herself to head to the classroom. She slides the door open to find Patrick and Alicia waiting, apologizing for the summons. Noticing Alicia's red eyes, Mary sweeps in with a flourish, ready to play her part and be rejected. Alicia tries to speak about the engagement, but Mary cuts her off to maintain the flow of the scene. To Mary's shock, Alicia screams that Mary deserves a marriage that everyone will bless. Mary stands frozen in disbelief as Patrick looks on with a knowing, resigned expression. Instead of the jealous outburst Mary expected, Alicia sincerely wishes for her rival's happiness. Mary confronts Alicia with a cold smile, asking if she truly believes the daughter of the Albert house would settle for a country girl's hand-me-down man. She graciously offers to break the engagement herself, volunteering to take the blame to save everyone the trouble. Mary steps into the room, her presence dominating the space as she prepares to deliver the final blow. She declares with disdain that she has no intention of associating with a man foolish enough to fall for a country girl. Patrick interrupts with a shout, boldly declaring his resolve to live together with Alicia. Mary immediately counters, demanding to know how he plans to handle his parents and the Dice family legacy while choosing a commoner. Patrick wavers but insists he has no choice but to convince them of his love. He frantically shakes Alicia, vowing to renounce the Dice family name if they refuse to understand. Mary observes him coldly, noting that his dignity comes from his own talent and efforts rather than his title. However, she realizes that for Alicia, accepting his sacrifice would equate to stealing his family and identity away from him. Mary tests the girl's resolve, asking Alicia if she was perhaps only chasing Patrick for his family name. Alicia furiously denies the accusation, shouting that she loves Lord Patrick for who he is, regardless of his status. Mary breathes a quiet sigh of relief, satisfied that the girl's feelings are genuine. She abruptly ends the interrogation, refusing to watch any more of their lovers' quarrel. Mary turns her back on the stunned couple, leaving them to their dramatic romance. She declares the conversation over and makes her exit, rejecting any further involvement. The heavy door shuts with a final creak, sealing the couple inside the room. Outside, Mary immediately demands her drink, but Addie suggests they visit the cafeteria instead of standing in the hall. Mary decides to order cake to celebrate this special day, though Addie sees through her act and knows she is just tired. Addie teases her about celebrating the day she got rejected, while Mary reminds him that the wedding is still a long way off. He smiles at her hidden kindness, though he notes with concern that Patrick had been acting strange all day. Mary complains about the incompetence surrounding her, only to be interrupted by a sudden shout calling her name. Addie is shocked to hear the engagement was broken off, while Mary admits she foolishly hoped her father would kindly take her in. She hugs a cushion in despair as Addie looks on with sympathy at her pathetic state. Mary shudders at the memory of her father's words, claiming even she would cry at such a pitiful request to return home. Regaining her composure, she declares they are following the storyline and this outcome is ultimately for the best. A sudden knock interrupts their conversation, and a maid apologizes for disturbing Mary at such a late hour. The maid begins to announce a visitor, and Mary is confused until she realizes who it is. A flashback reveals a tender memory of young Addie and Mary holding hands in a shower of sparkles. Mary sneaks out with a lantern, recalling how she used to visit the servants' quarters as a child because she didn't understand their need for time off. She blushes at the embarrassing memory of being a nuisance while overhearing the servants discuss their plans inside. The staff happily chats about the town festival and the master's kindness in granting them a day off. Mary decides to leave them be, realizing as an employer's daughter she would only be an intruder in their private space. She arrives at a door labeled Addie and hesitates for a moment before firmly knocking. Addie throws the door open while gasping for breath, apologizing profusely for making his mistress wait. Mary enters the room and comments on the mess, noting that an Albert servant is provided with quite a spacious living area. She spots a suspicious pile covered by a cloth and points it out, but Addie frantically denies its existence with a nervous laugh. Addie blocks her path and begs her to behave, but Mary calls him desperate and reaches for the forbidden stash. She touches something underneath the cloth and realizes exactly what kind of shameful items he is hiding. In a panic, Addie slams a teacup onto the table and commands her to sit down immediately to distract her from his secrets. Mary sips her tea and feels like an outsider in his castle, scolding him for not hiding his shame better before inviting her. Addie retorts that her visiting a man's room at night is audacious and argues she should have summoned him instead. He thanks her for coming despite his complaints, while Mary stares at him in confusion at his twisted logic. Mary nervously sips her tea, acknowledging that they must avoid misunderstandings given the late hour and their genders. Addie dramatically exclaims that he could never ask the master for time off at this hour without risking immediate dismissal. He tries to steer the conversation to business, but Mary insists they discuss the matter they have been putting off. Mary threatens to expose the pile under the cushion and slap his dismissal notice on his face if he doesn't listen. Defeated by his antics, Mary relaxes into the chair and sighs that he always manages to take the wind out of her sails. Addie's expression turns serious as he asks his mistress to finally answer him honestly. He looks her in the eye and asks why she is so determined to play the role of the villainess. Mary simply states that she is Mary Albert and her role is to be the villain who falls into ruin. Addie vehemently denies her reasoning, declaring that being a villain does not suit her character at all. Mary asks if he can't just support her for once, but Addie refuses to back down from his total denial. She purses her lips in frustration, unable to counter his stubborn refusal to accept her act. Mary realizes she cannot dodge his suspicions with jokes this time and lets out a heavy sigh. She admits she was never interested in the noble villainous role and agrees to explain her true feelings. Mary confesses that unlike the game version, she has no desire to harass people she hates and prefers to ignore them. Addie confidently asserts that she will never play the role of the noble villainess because she is more prideful than anyone else. He claims to have watched her closer than anyone and knows that the villainous archetype is the person Mary hates the most. Mary lets out a knowing smirk, silently acknowledging the truth in his analysis of her character. Addie lists her humble habits, noting she neither exploits her authority nor lets student jeers faze her. He questions why someone with her true nature would aim to play the shameful role of a noble villainess. Mary confirms his assessment is exactly right without offering further defense. She vehemently declares that she has no intention of stooping to that uncivil woman's level, even as a means to an end. Addie falls silent, contemplating the contradiction in her words and actions. He points out that while she aims for ruin, she never explicitly stated she wanted to become a noble villainess. Addie asks if she thinks the Albert family has become too large, probing for her true motive. Mary explains that a noble's estate and spending are displays of financial power and authority. She notes that maintaining such a spectacular view displays affluence that even the Dice family cannot match. Addie realizes the Albert family has grown larger than it should, ostensibly second to royalty but practically equal. He observes that lower-ranking royals are even toadying to the Albert family to benefit from their influence. Addie acknowledges he has watched them try to gain equal footing with the central royal family for years. Mary resolves to reduce their influence herself before the situation becomes irreversible. Addie realizes that if the Albert authority surpasses the royal family, the consequences will be dire. A heavy silence hangs between them as the weight of the political reality settles in. Mary asserts that being born noble shouldn't grant absolute superiority and she refuses to support such an aristocracy. She warns that noble supremacists are using her father to surpass the royal family against his own intentions. Addie argues that if the family prospers, she could enjoy an even higher standard of living. Mary retorts that a croquette supremacist like him might be satisfied, but she simply chooses not to indulge. Addie slams the table and shouts that she could have 3 meals of croquettes a day and avoid jeers if she accepted it. Mary thanks him for the sentiment but insists that ruling as the head of nobles would change everything for the worse. She predicts that the supremacists will turn their backs on the family the moment they become a thorn in the side. Mary praises her father's talent for expanding business overseas and elevating the family name. Addie asks for clarification, and Mary hints that there wouldn't be a problem if talent were the only factor. She reveals that her father's nature is to accept anyone unconditionally, which leads to him being deceived. Mary pours tea and notes that her father trusts others far too much for his own good. Addie agrees that trusting is an understatement but points out she remains blindly devoted to him. He adds that the Duke even overlooks his eccentric daughter's behavior without ever trying to reform her. Mary admits that what she fears most is not noble disputes, but incurring the wrath of the royal family. She explains that the royals will never overlook an insolent family attempting to stand at the kingdom's pinnacle. Mary grimly predicts that when the royals attack, their allies will betray them and leave the Alberts defenseless. Addie deduces that she aims to orchestrate their ruin before the royal family can destroy them completely. Mary confirms she plans to appease the royal anger by voluntarily returning authority and taking the blame alone. She argues that a future where she causes a controlled ruin is better than being crushed by royal wrath. Mary cites the game's sequel where the Albert parents apologize and swear fealty after the villainess's fall. She reveals the family has overseas escape routes, ensuring they can crawl back up even if they fall from the cliff. Addie realizes she intends to commit lèse-majesté solely to make herself the scapegoat for the family's ambition. He looks horrified as he processes that she intends to be the only one sent to a faraway land. Mary cheerfully mentions the epilogue where she is exiled north, but Addie screams in disbelief at the punishment. Addie chugs his drink in frustration while Mary looks confused by his sudden emotional outburst. Mary suspects the destination is the madam's hometown, prompting Addie to cough and dodge the details. He describes the region as inconvenient yet profitable during the bird migration season's tourist rush. Mary laments the cruelty of being banished to such a place, dismissing Addie's defense of the local academy. She defiantly announces her plan to open a poultry rice bowl restaurant and amass a personal fortune. Addie sighs in exasperation while Mary hallucinates a future of booming business and massive profits. She vows to live freely using her inherited business sense, ignoring Addie's dismay at her settling down there. Addie notes the pity of her running a rice bowl shop while Alicia enjoys the events of the game's fandisk. The conversation pauses as Mary completely glosses over the crucial keyword he just dropped. Addie prods her to recall his words until she finally realizes he mentioned a fandisk. She panics instantly, demanding to know if her role in the sequel involves death or total erasure. Addie corrects her with a grim look, admitting she does indeed have a part in the new game. He falls silent for a moment, letting the anticipation and dread wash over her. Addie drops the bombshell that she has been upgraded to having her own capture route in the fandisk. He delivers a deadpan congratulation as Mary stands frozen by the unexpected twist they introduce Addie, a background character and non-love interest who blindly supports the villainous Mary's evil deeds. Despite being a servant and 5 years older, his unique charm made him popular enough to earn his own route in the game. Mary questions why the game plot forces him into an orphanage, prompting Addie to explain the original storyline. Alicia grew isolated before college, burdened by her royal status with no one to confide in regarding her worries. Feeling constricted by the heavy expectations of royalty, she one day decided to sneak out of the castle. She stumbled upon a heartwarming scene of Addie laughing joyfully while playing with children at the orphanage. A flashback reveals Addie lost his position because the Albert family fell into ruin and could no longer employ him. Mary smiles wistfully, realizing that the game version of Addie was actually quite happy after her family's downfall. Addie endured Mary's tyranny solely to protect his family, so her ruin paradoxically liberated him from his burden. Having lost his job as an attendant, Addie commands Alicia to follow his lead, establishing a new dynamic between them. He decides to serve others to atone for his sins, and witnessing this resolve heals the wounds in Alicia's heart. Addie concludes the story, but Mary interrupts in shock, demanding to know why there was a full reset of the romance. Mary gleefully gives a thumbs up, explaining the Viva Fandisk concept where the slate is wiped clean for new routes. Addie argues that a romance between a future queen and a ruined servant is impossible, but Mary dismisses logic for love. While Addie is baffled by the term disc, Mary praises the blatant fanservice designed purely to spoil the players. She explains that the fandisk is a high-sugar alternate reality where contradictions slide to allow Addie and Alicia to be together. Addie abruptly stands to leave, noting his route was popular, but Mary asks if he stayed while she was banished. He evades the question by claiming he needs fresh air, and Mary notes with concern that he doesn't look well. Mary chuckles softly to herself, observing that he looks just as distressed as she feels. Addie thanks her for the tea and firmly shuts the door, bidding his mistress a final good night. Mary sighs heavily as she listens to his footsteps fading away into the silence of the night. She covers her face in shame, berating herself for being the worst kind of person. Mary recalls that while Addie has a happy route in the fandisk, there is absolutely no mention of the villainous Mary. She realizes she has known since the opening ceremony that the Albert family is destined to fall into ruin in every route. Mary reflects that she wouldn't mind being banished to a faraway land or locked in a strict boarding school. She admits to herself that she could endure any hardship as long as she could remain by Addie's side. A self-deprecating smile forms as she realizes treating him like property is exactly what a noble villainess does. Standing before the closed door, she silently confronts the painful reality of her own feelings. Mary leans against the door, telling herself with resignation that this separation is truly for the best. Addie suddenly stops in the hallway, his expression intense as he wrestles with his conflicting thoughts. He grabs the handle and throws the door open, declaring he needs to speak before he can sleep. Addie slams his hand against the wall, demanding she hear him out regardless of what his game version does. He shouts with raw emotion that the choices of his game self have absolutely nothing to do with him. Looming over her, Addie declares he will follow her to the northern lands or an isolated island, no matter the ruin. He fervently asserts that his place is by her side, regardless of where she goes or what happens. Mary is stunned into silence, blushing as she thanks him for making her happier than she can say. She stares at his hand on the doorframe, wondering when his hands grew so big and manly. Addie smiles and reaffirms their shared goal to fall into ruin, which Mary realizes she never noticed because he was always there. He closes his eyes with a gentle smile, confirming their pact is absolute and he will never leave her. Mary beams with a radiant smile, her heart lightened by the unwavering loyalty of her attendant. Addie bids his lady goodnight and quietly shuts the door, leaving her alone in the dim room. A heavy sigh escapes Mary's lips as the exhaustion of the day finally catches up to her. Her legs give way as she staggers unsteadily across the carpet toward the furniture. With zero grace remaining, she dives face-first into the cushions with a soft thud. Mumbling incoherently into the bedding, she struggles to remember that she must meet Alicia tomorrow. Her mind drifts to the realization that the original game story and its pairings no longer matter. She affirms this thought, deciding that her game self's choices have nothing to do with her current reality. But panic strikes when she thinks of Addie, realizing that her ruin means his dismissal and their inevitable separation. She clenches the sheets in frustration, horrified to discover she had subconsciously assumed he would always be by her side. Curling into a ball in the darkness, she whispers a terrified realization as the truth sinks in. Mary confesses to the empty room that she can't think straight anymore, her heart in turmoil. The story opens with a serene view of the academy gates as a carriage passes by. A heavy sigh echoes from the ground near the carriage wheels. Mary pedals furiously on a bicycle, declaring this moment the biggest disgrace of her entire life. She blames Addie for their mode of transport, but he simply laughs off her indignation. Mary storms off into the bushes in a huff while Addie frantically chases after his mistress. A flashback reveals Mary came down with a fever the next day because she overthought her villainous plans. The doctor diagnosed it as a teething fever, reducing her dramatic illness to a childish ailment. Back in the present, Mary feels a sudden shiver and whirls around in alarm. Addie looks confused as he tries to identify the source of the disturbance. Mary asks what happened during her absence, but Addie looks nervous and mutters that this is bad. Alicia waves enthusiastically from down the path and dashes toward them. She expresses relief at Mary's recovery, while Addie snarks at her unladylike running. Alicia beams a bright greeting, but Mary is repulsed by her overwhelming commoner energy. Mary lectures her on elegance, stating she would never run in such an unsightly manner. Alicia thanks her for the advice with sparkling eyes, interpreting the insult as genuine guidance. Addie asks why she was rushing, his expression shifting to one of concern. Alicia hesitates and clutches her skirt, signaling that something is wrong. A voice interrupts them, asking if everything is all right as a hand reaches out. The atmosphere grows tense as the chatter of other students surrounds the two girls. A foot stomps down authoritatively as someone shouts Mary's name. The voice demands they discuss all the evil deeds she has supposedly committed so far. Patrick and the student council appear, leaving Alicia looking completely bewildered. Patrick declares that the incidents began the day Mary stayed home and names Alicia as the victim. He lists the offenses, including torn textbooks and dirty uniforms, claiming the evidence points to Mary. Mary realizes with a jolt that the condemnation event has finally arrived to signal her ruin. When asked if she knows anything, Mary feigns ignorance and claims she is still recovering from her cold. She notices the situation is wrong because all the love interests are staring at her instead of fawning over Alicia. In the original game, Alicia serves as the tearful accuser while the men protect her. To everyone's shock, Alicia furiously defends Mary and denies that she would ever bully anyone. Addie stands frozen, realizing Alicia stole his role of defending his mistress. The bespectacled council member suggests Alicia is only defending Mary because she fears her. A close-up reveals the intensity of the confrontation as the tension peaks. Mary remembers the game setting about the grudge but tells Alicia not to worry about defending her. A council member interrupts, accusing Mary of engaging in unladylike behavior routinely. He claims she sent her attendant to perform the harassment while she stayed home, shocking Mary. The entire student council turns their icy glares toward Addie. They interrogate him, pointing out that witnesses saw him stop somewhere instead of going straight home. Addie denies the accusation, but they claim he returned to school to arrange the bullying. The council demands he reveal his true whereabouts during those unaccounted hours. Addie deadpans that he went to the city to buy croquettes because Mary demanded them. Mary declares with absolute conviction that the humble croquette is her divine source of nutrients, flipping her hair dramatically. Addie realizes with a sweat drop that her sudden exit from the party was solely motivated by a craving for fried potatoes. The crowd rumbles in disbelief as Mary stands by her truth, completely unbothered by their skepticism. She defends bringing oily comfort food to a sick person, baffled that these nobles cannot comprehend cuisine beyond their high-class bubbles. The student council member snaps, demanding she give up the act and confess to the truth of her bullying. Mary realizes she has been perfectly framed and that any defense she mounts will be twisted into the desperate lies of a villainess. She accepts that the game's condemnation event has begun and that her words are destined to be ignored no matter what she says. Resigning herself to the futility of the situation, she acknowledges that nothing she says will change their narrative. The accuser gloats that she has finally stopped making excuses, while Mary internally groans at how utterly tiresome this charade is. A sudden, terrifying shift in her aura freezes the glasses-wearing boy in his tracks, silencing his arrogance instantly. Mary unleashes a villainous smile so potent it radiates pure intimidation, freezing the room in fear. Addie watches with resignation as the student council misinterprets her silence as guilt for bullying Alicia over Patrick. They accuse her of abandoning her studies to commit petty harassment, a claim that insults Mary's pride more than the bullying charge itself. Mary scoffs at the idea that she would resort to such low-level pranks like throwing water or dirtying uniforms. She claps her hands and offers to show them what true harassment from the Albert family actually looks like. With a terrifyingly pleasant smile, she asks for volunteers to step forward and be the first victim of her wrath. She advances on the group, graciously offering to save time by destroying them all simultaneously. The challenge hangs in the air as she declares her readiness to take on the entire council right then and there. She mocks them for finally understanding who they are up against, claiming she can entertain them better than a country girl. Alicia pouts as she realizes Mary is acting, while Patrick struggles to stifle his laughter at the absurdity of the farce. The faculty advisor steps in to lecture Mary, claiming he cannot overlook behavior that is so unbecoming of a lady. Mary retorts that she has never caused trouble for the teachers, but he insists her mere existence lowers the academy's dignity. She corners him with his own logic, forcing him to admit that he believes her fundamental nature is the problem. Mary escalates the argument to a lethal level, suggesting he is implying her mother was unfaithful and her lineage is a lie. She ruthlessly proposes that if his insults are true, the Albert family should change their crest to a cuckoo immediately. Her voice drops to a whisper as she acknowledges the gossip that has always followed her regarding her eccentricities. She silences the room by declaring her parents' absolute fidelity and their unconditional love for their eccentric daughter. The students tremble in terror as Mary points out that their insults have inadvertently slandered the powerful Duke and Duchess. She reveals she usually ignores such mockery, but she refuses to stand by while they paint her as the villain in a fight they started. Mary reminds them that while she is odd, she has never abused her massive authority to fire people over minor slights. She crushes the accusation about the cafeteria, revealing the menu changes were a business expansion approved by the academy itself. Furious at the injustice, she defends her perfect safety record and refuses to accept their fault-finding any longer. Deciding to give them the villain they want, she resolves to use the full weight of her money and power to crush them. She smiles chillingly, noting how easy it will be to have them disowned by their families to protect the rest of their kin. The teacher gulps audibly as the terrifying reality of her threats sinks in. Mary dismisses them, promising to graciously hire their destitute servants once their families collapse under her retaliation. She declares the entertainment over and turns to leave, ignoring their panicked attempts to stop her. As she walks away, she mocks their shallow logic for missing the obvious friendship between her, Addie, and Alicia. Addie stands in the background, clapping slowly for the magnificent performance. He cheers enthusiastically for his lady, celebrating the splendid way she dismantled her accusers. Patrick breaks the tension by inviting Mary to tea, noting with a smile that she shattered the frigid atmosphere in an instant. He bursts into laughter upon recalling the cafeteria lady's concern for their rice bowl missy and her rumored teething fever. Alicia furiously scolds him for his cruelty in cornering a sick girl, but Patrick simply finds her anger amusing. Tears stream down Alicia's face as she wails about the ambush, though Mary ignores the drama to admire her cute pout. A dark aura radiates from Alicia as she catches Addie trying to sneak away, freezing him in his tracks with a glare. She screams at them for not condemning the council, causing Patrick to burst into laughter at the chaotic scene. Mary sighs that the farce was hardly helpful proof, but she felt compelled to clear her name regardless. Patrick cuts her off gently, his expression softening as he tells her not to speak like that. He reveals that too many people believed the rumors that he had discarded her for a new love. With a charming smile, he declares that she is a great catch and would have been the perfect marriage partner for him. He admits that if he hadn't met Alicia things might be different, leaving the girl blushing as the childhood friends part ways. Alicia puffs her cheeks in anger, demanding the student council beg for forgiveness for believing false information. The council members bow their heads in shame, apologizing profusely for their immature assumptions. Mary terrifies them by smiling and asking if their immaturity isn't exactly why they are still in school. Alicia looks touched by the sentiment, while the boys tremble in fear until Mary tells them not to worry. The council members vow to protect the girls, completely unaware that they are chasing a phantom culprit. Mary watches in disbelief as Patrick devours a sizzling steak, marveling that his stomach must be made of steel. She smirks to herself, deciding that his crude insolence is actually cute compared to a certain someone she knows. The cafeteria lady cheers for the rice bowl missy, while Mary silently crushes Patrick's foot under the table in retaliation. Patrick notices Mary's distress in the library and asks if something is the matter, prompting her to finally speak up. Mary hesitates, stammering as she tries to formulate a hypothetical question about a certain possibility. She asks if Alicia is actually fond of him, causing Patrick to look confused by the sudden inquiry. Addie urges her to continue, sensing she is on the verge of a breakthrough. Mary begs for an answer that is easy to process, clutching her chest in anxiety. Patrick admits that while they go to school together, he is not at the romantic stage she implies. He clarifies that he and Alicia are undeniably just best friends, causing Mary to groan in frustration. Patrick tries to defend his position, but Mary demands a straight answer for future reference. Mary bursts out that the phrase, "villainess who did nothing wrong," is absurd and insists she is a proper villain. She slams the table and argues that she makes it a daily habit to hurt Alicia, to which Patrick dryly agrees. Mary explains that unlike the game version, her verbal abuse is unrestricted and far harsher. She recalls the other day when Alicia came running to her, and she delivered a scathing rebuke. Mary proudly recounts calling Alicia an untrained cur compared to the Albert family watchdogs. To her dismay, she reveals Alicia simply exclaimed, "Wow," in admiration, leaving Addie to retort that it was his line. Patrick encourages her that she can still redeem herself, and Mary pumps her fists with renewed determination. Mary cheerfully declares that if all else fails, she can always resort to violence to prove her villainy. She decides to pierce Alicia with her drill-like hair, acting out the motion with intense enthusiasm. Addie interrupts to reveal that Alicia has a date with Patrick in the city tomorrow noon. He confirms Alicia invited him again, warning Mary not to ask how he knows. Mary immediately decides to interfere, deducing from the game's timeline that this is the critical date. She commands Addie to prepare, announcing they will leave for the city tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Addie questions the early time, noting that she has been letting Alicia do as she pleases until now. Mary explains that if this is the game's final date event, she must interfere at all costs. A flashback explains that date events are essential for clearing the game and avoiding a tragic ending. The narrative establishes that the villainous Mary is scripted to appear on the last day of these events. Arriving early in the empty streets, Mary explains she is here to spitefully ruin the intimate date. She decides to buy a pen for her father to write a dismissal letter, ignoring Addie's plea to sleep in a cafe. Addie feigns motivation with a yawn, promising to get started on their important task. Mary drags him toward a shop called Lupin, ready to execute the next phase of her plan. The narration describes how Mary's pride was hurt, leading her to ruin the date and get royally dumped. Addie realizes Mary predicted these events and agrees to begin their preparations immediately. Mary suddenly grabs his arm and drags him away, declaring they must do some shopping first. When Addie questions her, she whispers that this is not a topic they should discuss in public. Addie looks confused as Mary insists on shopping without explaining her sudden change of pace. She cryptically asks why he would trouble himself when they are simply there to shop. Addie imagines the game scene where he walks behind Mary carrying countless boxes while people gossip. Mary loudly announces she needs a pen for a dismissal petition while Addie groans in the background. She reveals she wants him to carry a tower of boxes to surpass his height, just like in the game. Addie sighs as the doorbell rings, wondering if this ridiculous plan will actually work. The narration notes that while this paints Mary as selfish, the sight of Addie struggling with boxes is essential to the scene. Mary unveils her master plan to crush Alicia's spirit by flaunting the vast difference in their social status through an extravagant shopping spree. Addie responds with a deadpan silence, clearly unimpressed by her grand declaration. 2 hours later, the plan flops as Mary slumps over a pathetic pile of small gifts, lamenting that she has absolutely nothing she wants to buy. Addie explains that her lack of greed is a side effect of her privilege, as her every desire is usually fulfilled instantly by servants and personal designers. Mary desperately defends her efforts, holding up 3 fingers to prove she actually managed to purchase 3 items. She forces a clerk to box a simple pack of tea, while Addie mocks her waning determination and points out that most of her haul fit in paper bags. Gritting her teeth, Mary scans the store for anything to boost her numbers, settling on a tiny box to bring her count to 4. She reaches for a pen, but Addie snarkily warns she would need gallons of ink to document all the insolence she endures from him. Mary pauses, a question forming in her mind as she stares at the meager pile of gifts. Addie flashes a wicked grin, realizing she completely misunderstood the core concept of his strategy. He scolds her for focusing on the contents, revealing that the key to looking wealthy is simply amassing a mountain of impressive-looking boxes. Leaning in with a devilish smile, he delivers the game-changing solution. They just need to buy the empty boxes themselves. Mary is horrified by the absurdity of the plan, refusing to become the textbook definition of a wasteful noble squandering money on cardboard. Addie ignores her protests and buys a box under the clerk's judgmental glare, while Mary desperately tries to disown the embarrassing situation. She demands he drop the weirdo label immediately, though Addie argues that paying customers are always right and the boxes will surely be useful. Hidden behind a towering wall of packages, Mary's eyes gleam with villainous intent as she prepares to unleash their deceptive plan. The trap is set as she waits with her mountain of empty boxes, ready to strike fear into the heart of the commoner. Patrick endures the insincere flattery of the tea party, noting how the guests merely parrot Duchess Albert's opinions to curry favor. Overcome by boredom, he decides to slip away for a walk to escape the suffocating atmosphere. He encounters Mary, who cryptically invites him to inspect her drill while wearing a mischievous smile. She directs his attention to the front right ringlet, and Patrick leans in to see what she is hiding. Mary screams, "Ladybug attack," as she reveals the bug, causing Addie to howl with laughter while Patrick chokes. Patrick wipes his mouth and demands to know why she showed him that, but she simply notes she showed Addie first. Addie declares his envy of the bug before sprinting away, leaving Patrick to realize the servant orchestrated their privacy. As Mary drones on about the ladybug's position, Patrick exhales and decides to simply pretend he is listening. He dreads another tragic loop but finds himself cornered as Mary cheerfully offers her left drill for inspection. The adults watch from afar, completely misinterpreting the chaotic interaction as a moment of perfect intimacy. Patrick asks if she emits pheromones to attract bugs, but Mary dismisses the rude suggestion with noble pride. She turns philosophical, staring at her hand as she compares the nature of ladybugs to humans. Mary concludes her lecture with the solemn wisdom that it is always better to bend than to break. Addie carries the towering stack of empty boxes with a deadpan expression, noting how effective their ridiculous plan is as they stroll through the city. Alicia spots them from a window and cheerfully calls out, prompting Mary to panic and attempt a frantic escape before being scolded for running. The energetic heroine catches up instantly, scolding the villainess for running while her dress flutters in the wind. Addie peeks out from behind his wall of cardboard, casually greeting Alicia as if he isn't participating in a bizarre scheme. Mary dramatically flips her hair, dismissing Alicia's awe by claiming this massive haul is absolutely nothing for someone of her status. She sneers at the commoner, declaring that a girl who struggles to buy a single piece of clothing couldn't possibly comprehend such excess. To Mary's shock, Alicia completely ignores the insult and excitedly assumes they are heading to buy even more items. Mary strikes a flamboyant pose, demanding Alicia check her purse and go green with envy over the mountain of boxes they woke up early to acquire. Alicia pouts adorably, complaining that Mary loves shopping so much yet refuses to go with her. She cries out that she is hurt, admitting she thought Mary hated shopping because she always turns down her invitations. Mary is left speechless and blushing, stammering in confusion at the girl's genuine emotional outburst. Recovering her composure, Mary analyzes the pout as a calculated trick to appeal to her affection, convinced the anger is merely an act. Alicia suddenly beams with a bright smile, extracting a promise from Mary to go shopping together next time. Mary is flabbergasted by the sudden shift, trembling with rage as Addie shakes the boxes to prevent her from stomping on his foot. She reaches out desperately to stop the situation spiraling further, stammering a weak protest. Patrick suddenly appears on the scene, catching Alicia and staring down the duo with a protective glare. He coldly asks what business Lady Mary has with them, while Mary forces a smile and prepares to execute her plan. The tension is palpable as the four characters stand off in the middle of the bustling street. Mary announces that her father wants to gift Patrick a party suit from a nearby tailor, internally screaming at herself to keep it together. Patrick confirms if the invitation is just for the two of them, his expression hardening as he processes the request. He immediately smiles down at Alicia, asking if they can postpone the fitting to another time. Mary tries to press the issue by arguing for efficiency, while internally screaming at Addie to shut up about her father's aesthetics. Patrick politely but firmly declines, promising to visit another day, while a loud voice suddenly interrupts their conversation. Mary calmly explains to a confused Addie that she has been rejected, accepting the outcome with surprising grace. Addie observes that she didn't really try to interfere, noting that she spent the entire conversation praising her father instead of seducing Patrick. With a serene smile, Mary pivots immediately to the important matter of lunch, inviting Addie to join her. Over delicious cake, Addie explains the hidden mechanics of the game, revealing that today's date event determines the ending route. He describes the standard date scenario where the love interest complements the protagonist's outfit and they enjoy a simple, romantic outing. Addie notes that usually, the villainous Mary interrupts and gets rejected, but this specific date event has a unique variation. He reveals the shocking possibility that under certain conditions, the love interest might actually accept the villainess's invitation, leaving Mary stunned. Mary demands half of Addie's cake as punishment, claiming she has separate stomachs for sweets. Addie retorts that her behavior is awful, but Mary proudly owns the persona of the selfish lady who pops out of nowhere. Mary explains that the love interest follows the villainess due to low love parameters, leading to hatred if she chases other men. She notes that this logic applies strictly to both the game and reality. Addie orders cake while Mary muses that being loved feels nice but maintaining it is difficult. Her expression softens as she contemplates the heavy burden of affection. Addie realizes Mary tested the master with the family head's invitation to see if he would turn it down. Mary confirms his deduction with a simple, exactly, acknowledging the test. She reveals that accepting her invitation would trigger one of 3 bad endings. Mary asserts that only a bad ending would explain someone following a girl like her. Mary describes the friendzone route as the game's version of a bad ending. She notes that since it is a G-rated game, the tragedy is merely a lack of romance rather than darkness. Citing Patrick's case, she explains that his bad ending involves a graduation where they remain just friends and colleagues. Mary notes that for a romance game, this platonic outcome is a bitter pill for the player. Mary explains that the protagonist is loved regardless of parameters, while the villainess is universally hated. She highlights the stark contrast in their narrative roles to justify her plan. She plans to use her family's authority to weigh against the love parameters and force the ruin course. Mary determines to ensure the outcome leads to her absolute downfall. Addie asks if she avoided the bad ending since Patrick prioritized Alicia earlier. Patrick touches his chin in thought as he analyzes the mechanics of the events. When Addie asks about the other bad endings, Mary smiles and implies one involves devotion to Patrick. She happily eats her cake, leaving the ominous details for later. Mary dismisses the topic for another day and suggests they continue shopping. Addie looks weary as she cheerfully pivots back to their outing. She drags him along for more shopping despite his protests. Addie struggles under the weight of boxes as Mary marches forward without mercy. Mary admits she is putting on airs to enjoy the behind-the-scenes feeling of the scenario. She confesses she has nothing to shop for but loves the mechanism of the event. A montage shows the pair moving through the town with Addie burdened by an ever-growing pile of boxes. Mary points out shops with boundless energy while her servant struggles to keep up. They find a bench to rest, and Mary decides it is about time they head back. Addie stands exhausted with his tower of boxes, ready to drop. Addie spots something and suggests Mary take a seat on the bench. He notices Alicia sitting nearby, looking concerned and out of place. Mary takes a seat and slyly invites Addie to watch how things unfold. Her expression turns calculating as she prepares to witness the main event. A commotion erupts nearby, drawing the attention of the crowd. People whisper and wonder what is happening as the atmosphere shifts. Addie notes that Patrick is as popular as ever, surrounded by the student council. The group creates a spectacle in the street, drawing all eyes. A hand reaches out in the crowd, startling Patrick with its suddenness. The tension rises as the interaction between the characters intensifies. Mary intervenes from the sidelines, whispering, "Oh no, you don't." She prepares to step into the scene to disrupt the flow of the game. Addie asks if this moment is one of the remaining branching points for the ending. He looks at Mary with concern as she watches the scene play out. Addie confirms that Patrick being surrounded is an inevitable event. Mary challenges Alicia's next move, setting the stage for the final confrontation. Mary sits beside Alicia on the bench, asking the heroine what she intends to do next. Addie falls into deep thought, analyzing the hidden mechanics of the current event. He reveals that the key character of this specific event is not the love interest but Alicia herself. The outcome depends entirely on Alicia's growth and whether she can polish herself independently of romance. Addie explains that if Alicia suggests having dinner with everyone, it signifies she lacks the confidence to be with Patrick alone. Although the line sounds altruistic and fits the image of a perfect heroine, it is a trap. He warns that such a choice ends the date prematurely, with Patrick simply agreeing to her suggestion. Addie labels this outcome a merry bad ending, where the relationship status is good in name only. He describes how their love would be doomed to secrecy or elopement, never overcoming the social barriers. Mary recalls that some fans in her previous life strangely supported this incomplete form of happiness. She dismisses these endings as unsatisfactory, pointing out that social standing remains an unresolved obstacle. Addie questions if the status gap truly prevents their mutual love from flourishing. Mary affirms that social standing is the game's central theme and will inevitably return to haunt them. She refuses to accept such a nonsensical conclusion, expressing her personal distaste for that struggle. Reasoning that her own banishment is inevitable anyway, she declares that the true end, where everyone is happy, is obviously superior. Mary demands they reach the best possible ending immediately, prompting Addie to ask how. Addie identifies the exact branching point that determines their fate. He reveals that the dinner with everyone option currently playing out leads directly to the bad ending. To reach the true ending, Alicia must summon the courage to invite only Patrick. Mary realizes with horror that Alicia is about to trigger the bad ending right before their eyes. She frantically scans the crowd, demanding to know where the heroine has disappeared to. Alicia sticks her tongue out at Patrick and suggests a dinner for 3, including Mary in her escape plan. Mary scolds Alicia for her lack of manners, but the heroine retorts that she assumes she isn't welcome in their circle and tries to leave. Desperate to change the flow, Mary bribes Alicia with the promise of delicious croquettes at a restaurant she knows. She sternly tells Alicia that running away won't do and she must speak to Lord Patrick properly. Alicia admits she feels out of place, while Addie gently encourages her to express her true feelings. The heroine hesitates, confessing she is unsure how to bridge the gap between her and the noble. Addie challenges her resolve, asking if she would rather give up and eat a sad dinner alone. He steps forward with a reassuring smile, offering his assistance to get her back on track. Addie declares that he genuinely wants to see Alicia find happiness. He vows to help her break the shackles of social standing and succeed in her romance. Addie loudly announces that he will do so with the generous help of his lady, shocking Mary completely. He tries to physically move Mary towards the couple, but she plants her feet and refuses to budge. A struggle ensues as Addie pushes her, while Mary panics that the empty boxes will topple and expose their lie. Mary accuses him of treason for steering her toward the couple, but Addie proudly declares himself the captain of Team Support Alicia. The group approaches the target, with Mary grumbling about her servant's betrayal. She switches instantly to her villainous persona, flipping her hair and greeting the group with a haughty smile. Mary chastises Patrick for shopping alone, boldly claiming it would have been her pleasure to accompany him. Patrick turns around in surprise, his eyes widening as he processes the sudden intrusion. He apologizes to Mary but exhales in visible relief when he spots Alicia standing behind her. Alicia looks up with a troubled expression as Patrick asks if something is wrong. They explains that the piercing stares of the crowd are painful due to the gap in their social standing. Alicia holds back her feelings, convinced that she is not good enough for a noble like Patrick. Resolving to fix the situation, Patrick suggests they all have dinner together to ease the tension. He addresses Alicia directly, hoping to encourage her to reach the best possible outcome. Patrick loudly invites everyone present to join them for a meal, attempting to diffuse the awkwardness. Mary scoffs at the proposal, calling it a farce, and turns to leave with Addie. Alicia suddenly desperately calls out and grabs Mary to stop her from walking away. Patrick sighs with a mix of relief and resignation, believing a group dinner is the right choice. Alicia trembles as she warns Patrick that her next words will only cause him trouble. She screams at the top of her lungs that she wants him all to herself for now. The crowd freezes in shock while Alicia turns pale as the weight of her confession hits her. She frantically apologizes to everyone while grabbing Patrick's arm to drag him away. Patrick declares he made a promise to escort her and willingly lets himself be abducted. Mary watches them leave, cynically noting that men are helpless when they are head over heels. She dismisses the scene as a farce while Patrick smiles happily despite being dragged off. A flashback reveals Mary ruthlessly rejected Patrick's earlier attempt to organize a group dinner for the four of them. Before escaping, Alicia hands Mary a gift and tells her to accept it before shooing her away. Mary inspects the bracelet, confused by the combination of silver and Venetian red beads. A flashback shows Alicia cheerfully buying the gift, excited to give it to her friend. Mary questions why she must accept a gift from a commoner who claims they are now a matching pair. Alicia explains she picked colors for everyone, specifically choosing gold and indigo for Patrick. Mary realizes the bracelet she holds is a unique combination that shouldn't exist in the game. Alicia smiles brightly and bids them farewell, promising to see them tomorrow. Addie comments that they will see her soon, while Mary analyzes the bracelet's non-canon nature. She realizes this item was never in the game because merchandise was never made for the hated villainess. Mary inspects the silver beads, confirming that her theme color was excluded from official merchandise. She wonders why Alicia gave her a bracelet meant for the two of us, if it's a matching pair. Mary deduces that a friendship bracelet for her and Alicia should have been gold and silver. Addie notices her intense confusion and asks if there is a problem with the gift. Mary realizes the colors are silver and Venetian red, representing her and Addie respectively. Addie stares at her with anticipation as she finally connects the dots regarding the color scheme. Mary focuses on the bracelet, realizing the colors signify a bond between mistress and servant. She triumphantly concludes that Alicia combined the colors because she is a poor commoner. Addie smiles with strained disbelief, asking her to repeat her ridiculous deduction. Mary explains that Alicia obviously couldn't afford two separate bracelets, so she combined them into one. Addie declares he will never expect anything from her again, leaving Mary shocked by his disappointment. She frantically demands to know exactly which part of her flawless logic upset him. Addie furiously ends the conversation, shouting that he lacks the energy to explain it to her. Mary is left stunned and blushing, completely failing to grasp the romantic implication of the paired colors. Addie calls out to halt Mary, who freezes with a start while clutching the beaded bracelet in her hand. Mary haughtily refuses to wear the cheap item lest it besmirch the Albert name, causing Addie to question if she intends to reject it entirely. He presses the issue further by asking if she plans to simply throw the bracelet away. Defensively, Mary claims she cannot disregard a commoner's offering despite the potential damage to her family's reputation. Addie suggests hiding it in her pocket, but his patience snaps as he demands she voice the complaints she is clearly holding back. Mary lashes out physically, shoving Addie with a sudden force that catches him completely off balance. As boxes topple around them, Mary screams that his nonchalant attitude irritates her while he frantically tries to prevent a disaster. With the stack of boxes looming dangerously over him, Addie begs for mercy while Mary coldly asks if he is satisfied. Mary abruptly declares they are leaving, fuming that the chaos prevented her from locating the delicious croquette restaurant. Watching her storm away, Addie lets out a brief, amused chuckle. He breaks her sullen silence by suggesting that a bite of the croquette she desires might improve her foul mood. Addie realizes her turbulent behavior is simply because she is navigating the unfamiliar emotions of making her first friend. He smiles to himself, acknowledging that despite the rough start, she has found a genuine connection. They introduces Corellia Academy as the kingdom's premier institution, offering a conducive environment unlike the work-study schools for commoners. Mary notes cynically that despite the prestige, the academy solicits funds and allows donations to solve the problem of poor grades. A black void separates the scenes, marking the transition into the academy's intricate social web. The academy serves as a miniature social gathering where parents network through their children, mixing stupid rich kids with brilliant heirs. Mary explains the exclusive university honors class where wealth is irrelevant and only the cream of the crop gains admission. Alicia sobs uncontrollably, heartbroken that she failed to get into the prestigious honors class. A close-up shows a trembling arm, capturing the physical weight of her disappointment and shame. Patrick comforts her by pointing out that the class is for heirs and scholars, so a country girl shouldn't feel bad about missing it. He reveals that he and Addie passed, surprising everyone since Addie is merely an attendant. Patrick turns to Mary and notes that she also passed, to which she agrees with a composed demeanor. He probes her intentions, asking if she entered the class because she aims to usurp the Albert family headship. Mary lets out a dismissive humph, amused by his sudden suspicion regarding her ambitions. Patrick reveals he thought she and Addie were plotting a war of succession against her brothers. He argues that despite the tradition of the firstborn heir, a person of her caliber wouldn't let gender stand in her way. Mary denies the accusation, claiming she only studies to help her father, though Patrick remains skeptical. He points out she deliberately made mistakes to become salutatorian and avoid the valedictorian speech. Mary counters that Patrick got a perfect score and will be the one delivering the speech instead. Patrick smiles and admits he is pleased that she is exactly as excellent as he thought she was. Alicia giggles at their banter, noting that they are really just praising each other in their own twisted way. Patrick clears his throat and expresses his genuine happiness that they can all spend their university life together. Mary abruptly stands up to leave, excusing herself to attend to another matter. She walks away with Addie, determined to complete the mountain of paperwork required for her university admission. Staring at the grand architecture, Mary wonders aloud if the Albert family will truly fall into ruin as destiny dictates. She commands Addie to return to the manor, sensing that the wheels of fate are turning. Mary reflects that Alicia was supposed to become queen and cause the downfall, but plans are not going smoothly. A montage of Alicia's smiling face floods Mary's mind, highlighting the girl's overwhelming positivity. Mary realizes with a cold sweat that Alicia's obvious fondness for her is a clear deviation from the game. She notes that in the original game, their relationship is broken beyond repair, filled with fear and hatred. Despite the emotional deviation, Mary acknowledges that the events haven't actually strayed from the main storyline. She feels trapped by the narrative, observing that while their relationship is opposite, the plot remains loyal. Mary realizes that if she ignores the details, they are actually following the events of Patrick's route. She notes with dread that the world isn't a perfect copy, yet the characters still recite game lines verbatim. Resigned to the flow, she decides they must wait for the final trial to see if they are truly bound by the story. Mary remarks that there is one crucial job left for them to perform to test fate. Addie looks at her in confusion, asking for clarification on what this final task entails. She declares with intensity that they must trigger the final mechanism to set the ending in motion. In the present, Mary scolds Alicia for her restlessness at the counter, calling it a disgrace to the academy. Mary freezes when she sees Alicia raise an object, sternly warning that violence is out of the question. Alicia explains she is just trying to submit her documents but is struggling with the sealing tools provided. She shakes the sealing wax bottle violently, leaving Mary confused by the commoner's lack of knowledge regarding stationery. Alicia stares blankly at the sealing wax, prompting Addie to realize she has never practiced the noble art of sealing. Mary and Addie whisper about commoner ignorance, while Alicia finally grasps that she must seal her own documents to proceed. Scolding Alicia for her lack of knowledge, Mary describes the process with bizarre onomatopoeias like plop, splosh, and thump. Mary presses further, asking why Alicia doesn't simply use her own personal seal stamp, leaving the girl completely bewildered. Alicia repeats the words in confusion, unable to comprehend the idea of owning a noble seal. Mary insists that she has seen a legitimate stamp engraved with Alicia's family crest, but Alicia firmly denies owning one. Reminding Mary of her orphanage upbringing, Alicia argues she has no family crest, though Mary maintains a knowing smile. Suddenly, a memory strikes Alicia, and she exclaims that she does indeed possess something with a logo on it. She happily produces a worn pouch from her orphanage teacher and rolls out a ring, while Addie watches with intense focus. The object rests in her palm, a heavy ring bearing a distinct and intricate design. Alicia explains she has carried it as a charm since being left at the orphanage, unaware that Addie is staring at it in horror. A heavy silence falls over Mary and Addie as they instantly recognize the insignia as the royal family's crest. Completely oblivious to the tension, Alicia chants the sound effects to herself and prepares to stamp the document. She presses the ring into the wax with a thump, delighted by the result, while Mary uselessly tries to correct her technique. Beaming with pride, Alicia hands the sealed envelope to the receptionist, thanking her for her patience. The receptionist and bystanders freeze in sheer terror as they stare at the unmistakable royal crest stamped in the wax. Panic erupts silently around them, and Addie and Mary realize they must leave immediately before the situation spirals. Mary sighs at the absurdity of the situation, calling it yet another farce as they retreat. Addie swiftly ushers them away from the building, leaving the chaos behind as they step into the night. Later, in the quiet of her room, Mary holds a letter close to the flickering candlelight. She sits in solitude, the weight of the day's revelation hanging heavy in the silent room. Gazing out at the vast, starry sky, she lets out a long, weary breath. With a sharp, determined glint in her eyes, Mary whispers into the darkness that the moment is coming soon. They reveals that divination was once a popular obsession among noblewomen long before Mary and Alicia were born. They treated it as a luxury pastime, decorating their mansions with compatible animals and tailoring dresses in lucky love colors. Among the many fortune-tellers invited to tea parties, the Queen's personal diviner held the most prestige. A flashback shows the Queen asking her fortune-teller to predict the weather for the following day. The fortune-teller confidentially predicts the weather, answering the Queen's test with ease. The Queen smiles in relief, recalling that the previous prediction of sunny weather had also been correct. She praises the woman as sensei and thanks her for guaranteeing the safety of the royal family. The fortune-teller laughs that the Queen is tight-lipped but accepts the honor of being called sensei. She predicts that for 3 nights starting tonight, the Queen will receive the King's love and be blessed with a wonderful boy. The Queen blushes deeply and confirms she understands the prophecy. The fortune-teller smugly notes that the Queen loves the King despite the political marriage and views this as a chance to monopolize him. She confidently believes her position in the court is now more secure than ever. The scene shifts to the birth of the royal child as the kingdom celebrates the arrival of a baby who looks like the Queen. To the shock of the prophecy, the announcement reveals that the newborn is a princess. The fortune-teller stands frozen in disbelief as the reality contradicts her prediction. She panics and destroys her room in a frenzy, screaming that it must be a lie or a mistake. Staring at the crying baby girl, she refuses to accept that her vision has failed. She realizes that girl must have interfered and notices the royal seal placed within the baby's clothes. The infant princess sleeps peacefully, unaware of the turmoil her gender has caused. The fortune-teller coldly bids the baby farewell, declaring that the child is not part of her future. Back in the present, Addie asks a sweating Patrick if that story is the truth behind the kidnapping. Mary confirms that the girl was sent to live in the countryside to hide the truth of her disappearance. She explains that someone grew suspicious of the fortune-teller before the kidnapping took place. Mary reveals a sepia photograph showing a woman walking away from a school with distinct vertical ringlets. Addie freezes in terror as he recognizes the hairstyle as identical to Mary's signature drills. Mary laughs and admits she found no relatives with such hair, teasing him for his visible panic. She jokes that the game creators likely just wanted to make the villainy a drill, while Addie recovers from his shock. Addie suggests that if she wants a dramatic downfall, she should punch a royal family member instead of bullying Alicia. Mary feigns indifference about Alicia's safety, but Addie points out she always carries the girl's handmade bracelet. Flustered and blushing, Mary demands to know how he knows about the secret item she hides. Addie smugly replies that he can tell at a glance whenever she has something hidden in her pocket. Mary begs him to keep it a secret, but Addie admits he already told Alicia and Patrick. She screams in humiliation, realizing the 2 people she least wanted to know are fully aware of her sentimental attachment. Mary tries to justify herself, claiming she couldn't throw it away but felt too awkward to wear it. Addie smiles warmly and reaches out to her, warning that she will get her dress dirty. He proudly declares he has been promoted to the captain of the Alicia cheering squad, causing Mary to call him a traitor. Their banter is interrupted by the sudden arrival of Mary's mother, who bursts into the room. She commands Mary to get ready immediately because they are going to the royal palace. Mary and Addie stand in shock as they process the sudden and commanding appearance of the Duchess. Confusion fills the room as the group gathers, wondering what this sudden summons to the palace means. Mary protests in vain as her mother drags her toward the palace, while Addie trails behind, bewildered by the sudden urgency. Servants whisper about the mother's legendary forcefulness in securing her husband, noting that this aggressive behavior is exactly what they expect from her. Mary attempts to escape to her own carriage, but her mother shuts her down instantly, ordering both her and Addie to get in because they are in a hurry. Defeated by her mother's intensity, Mary agrees to board the carriage while a servant waits by the open door. Inside, Mary reassures her mother but questions why Addie is sitting as far away from them as physically possible. Addie looks pale and covers his mouth, muttering a weak apology to Mary's mother for his behavior. Mary tries to distract him by suggesting they get moving, but her mother immediately notices Addie's deteriorating condition. The narrator reveals that Addie suffers from severe motion sickness and absolutely despises riding in carriages. He struggles to keep his composure, turning a sickly shade of green, while Mary's mother observes him with cold, judgmental eyes. Panic sets in as Addie confesses he can't hold it back because the vomit is already at the threshold, to which the mother simply responds with a chilling indifference. With a terrifying smile, the mother declares she doesn't care if Mary is okay with it, implying she has zero sympathy for Addie's impending disaster. Addie frantically offers to ride a horse or even on the roof to save them from the mess, while Mary tries to calm him with a bizarre metaphor about his semicircular canals. Desperate to divert his attention, Mary points out the window and urges him to focus on the passing scenery instead of his nausea. Her strategy seems to work, and she smiles, teasing that his dramatic reaction is just like him. As they near their destination, they spot a woman with distinctive vertical curls, sparking Mary's curiosity. Mary and Addie arrive at the palace, looking up at the imposing structure with a mix of awe and apprehension. To Mary's amazement, the usually bustling entrance is empty, and no one comes to greet them. Mary asks why she has been brought here, and her mother reveals that the missing princess has finally been found. Realizing the friend in trouble is Alicia, Mary listens as her mother commands her to help if her friend needs her. Addie confirms that the situation definitely revolves around Alicia, validating Mary's sudden worry. As she departs, the mother warns Addie that she will make him pay for the carriage incident on the way home, leaving him terrified. Mary observes the strange atmosphere, noting that despite the fuss, they are being completely ignored by the palace staff. The palace is in chaos with individual desires running wild since the princess's return, as the king and queen are in shock over their daughter's reappearance. Rumors are swirling that the royal daughter is romantically entwined with a man from the Dice family, adding scandal to the miracle. Mary wonders who will take charge in this chaotic vacuum while their majesties are away on a diplomatic mission. Standing before a large set of doors, Mary feels an intense, crushing pressure radiating from the other side. She hesitates, sensing Alicia is behind the door and recalling the painful memory of her friend's rejection. Addie nervously suggests they retreat to rent a room for tea, but they are interrupted by a sudden, threatening presence behind them. A sharp glare flashes and a fist clenches as Mary's mother prepares to take decisive action. With a massive crash, the mother physically shoves Mary and Addie through the doors to force them into the room. Addie and Mary scream in terror and disbelief at the mother's violent method of entry. The heavy doors slam shut behind them, leaving them exposed as the dust settles from their explosive entrance. They stumble into a grand hall, finding themselves the sudden center of attention among a gathering of nobles. The room is filled with stern-faced men who glare at Mary with intense scrutiny as she regains her balance. Mary clenches her fist, recognizing her father among the intimidating crowd. Suddenly, Alicia breaks away from the group and rushes desperately toward Mary. Alicia clings to Mary, weeping and begging her to stay because she has no idea what to do in this overwhelming situation. Alicia trembles in fear as the whispers of the crowd grow louder and the orphanage director fails to appear. Patrick sighs with relief at having an ally while Mary looks completely fed up with his dependency. Mary declares she has no place here as she is neither royalty nor the Albert heir. She lists the accusations of stealing the seal and the rumors of Alicia being a princess. Alicia tearfully insists the seal was a good luck charm and begs Mary to believe her. Mary stares silently, knowing she cannot yet reveal the truth about Alicia's appearance. She analyzes Alicia's face, noting the purple eyes and resemblance to the queen exactly as the game described. A heavy silence falls as Mary processes the weight of the destiny unfolding before her. Mary wavers, realizing her only proof is a game from a past life she lived. She questions if she can truly rely on those memories to determine if Alicia is the lost princess. A realization strikes her that she herself is an irregularity that defies the game's logic. Mary looks down at the crying girl, recalling the bracelet Alicia gave her. She wipes Alicia's tears with rough affection, refusing to let the girl crumble. Mary loudly insults her as a bumpkin to snap her out of her despair while the men watch in stun. She commands Alicia not to bring her countryside stench into the sacred parliament room. Turning to Patrick, she screams that he didn't fall in love with a princess. Mary points out that the person he loves is this specific country girl standing right here. She lists Alicia's rustic charm and impudence as the very reasons for his affection. Mary demands he stop looking so pathetic and accept the reality of his feelings. Regaining her composure, she apologizes for the outburst and asks them to continue the story. Internally, Mary panics that her disrespect could lead to her execution if Alicia is truly royalty. Addie suddenly interrupts, shouting that he told her he would follow her anywhere. He vows with intense, desperate eyes that he will follow her even to the gallows. Mary calls him an idiot with a soft smile, touched by the devotion of her lowest-ranking servant. The commotion settles down and the council meeting resumes its chaotic course. Mary wonders why her mother brought her here and questions the competence of the Supreme Council. Duchess Albert suddenly raises her hand, announcing she has information regarding the seal. Mary realizes with a shock that the woman with ringlets in the sepia photo was her own mother. The Duchess confesses that she is the one who gave the royal seal to the young princess that day. She explains that she had harbored suspicions about the fortune-teller for a long time. As a mother herself, she could feel the hatred directed at the princess by the diviner. The Duchess reveals she kept a constant watch on the woman to protect the child. A flashback shows the Duchess reaching out to stop the kidnapping or intervene. Mary realizes her mother was the one who saved the princess and gave her the seal for protection. The Duchess asserts the truth and asks if anyone can testify to her story. The doors open to reveal the arrival of the King and Queen of Granquil. King Cecilio apologizes for their tardiness as the room falls silent. Queen Grace enters with an elegant smile, commanding the attention of everyone present. The resemblance between Queen Grace and Alicia becomes undeniable as they stand near each other. Patrick and Mary watch in awe as the truth of Alicia's lineage becomes physically obvious. Addie admits he was staring off into space to escape reality, but Mary sharply scolds him, demanding he take her along if he plans to flee. A realization strikes Mary as she notes Alicia's striking resemblance to the Queen, confirming the game's backstory about the King's genes. The focus shifts to the back of Alicia's head, capturing the heavy silence before the storm of emotions breaks. A voice calls out, "Alicia," and the Queen stands with open arms, waiting for her daughter as footsteps echo across the floor. Memories of a lost childhood flood Alicia's mind as she stares in disbelief at the mother she has finally found. Tears well up in Alicia's eyes, spilling over as the overwhelming emotion of the moment finally shatters her resolve. With a cry of, "Mother!" Alicia dashes forward and throws herself into the Queen's waiting embrace. The King joins them, wrapping his arms around his wife and daughter as they celebrate the return of their little girl. Watching from the sidelines, Patrick observes the tearful family reunion with a gentle, satisfied smile. Addie clutches his stomach in relief, calling the scene a beautiful cliché while trying to manage his own frayed nerves. Sensing Mary has reached her limit, Addie suggests they retreat home for a comforting dinner of croquettes to lift her spirits. Mary readily agrees, eager to buy delicious food on the way back and put this exhausting event behind her. Suddenly, Addie's demeanor shifts, and he urgently warns Mary that they need to leave the premises immediately. He explains that a mob of angry nobles is gathering outside, and the King's introduction of Alicia will likely trigger complete chaos. Mary decides to cut their losses and escape, silently apologizing to her mother as they attempt to sneak away. Their plan is foiled instantly as Patrick claps his hands, catching them right as they try to slip out the door. Ignoring their escape attempt, Patrick cheerfully invites them to join the intimate dinner with their majesties and Alicia. Addie suffers a mental breakdown, screaming that he just wants to go home and sleep, while Mary stares in disbelief at the turn of events. Before they can react further, Alicia calls out, "Lady Mary," from across the room, stopping Mary in her tracks. Alicia beams with a radiant, unburdened smile, causing Mary to let out a resigned sigh as she looks back at the castle. The scene shifts to a carriage ride, with the narrator noting that dining with royalty is a significant event even for the Albert family. Addie sits nervously, confessing that he is anxious about dining at the same table as Mary and Patrick, while Mary remains composed. Seated across from her, Patrick smiles warmly and tells Mary that she is a truly good woman. He teasingly asks if she regrets dumping him and jokes about seducing her to be his concubine, catching Mary off guard. Mary retorts that he isn't being honest and mocks his bad taste for switching his attention from a country bumpkin to her. Patrick chuckles at her sharp tongue while Addie sighs in the background, resigned to the chaotic dynamic of his companions. Alicia confesses her sadness to Patrick, leaning on him for emotional support regarding the situation. Mary interrupts the moment to dryly praise Patrick, her expression unreadable as she observes them. She teases that between the address, diplomas, and speech, the ceremony is essentially a Patrick-starring show. Mary casually pulls out a tourist guide to the northern lands, catching Patrick completely off guard. She cheerfully explains this is preparation for her exile, causing Patrick to sigh at her relentless commitment to ruin. Mary visualizes her dramatic condemnation where she is cast down to hell while the princess reigns supreme. Bursting with ambition, she reveals her true endgame is to open a chicken rice bowl restaurant in the north. Patrick logically argues that neither he nor the princess would ever condemn her given their current bond. Mary mischievously suggests she might be exiled in a different way, while Patrick watches her with intense devotion. He declares that whether it is the frozen north or a rice bowl shop, he will follow her anywhere. Patrick asserts that his place is by her side, confirming he has absolutely no intention of giving up. He adds that he is surprisingly good with chickens, earning a rare look of reassurance from his beloved. Mary beams and promises to appoint him as assistant manager, sealing their future partnership with a smile. The narrative shifts to the commencement of the graduation ceremony, marking the beginning of the finale. Addie signals that the time has come, his expression serious as the moment arrives. Mary steels herself with a sharp, determined gaze, ready to face her destiny. The doors open and Mary enters the grand hall, stepping into the spotlight of the final stage. Alicia stands on the podium in full royal regalia, radiating the presence of a true princess. Mary watches with a smile, praising the girl's transformation into a figure of pure elegance. Patrick agrees she is beautiful, while Mary commends the magnificence of her improvised performance. Mary snaps at Patrick not to compare her to a bumpkin and demands he execute her downfall properly. Patrick looks at her with a mixture of resignation and affection, accepting that this is the end of the line. Alicia addresses the assembly, formally introducing herself as Alicia Granquil. She vows to correct the bad habits and social disparities she witnessed within the academy. Mary eagerly anticipates the condemnation, imagining Alicia scolding her for being a disgraceful bumpkin. In her fantasy, Alicia asks if the humiliation burns, forcing Mary to resent her for the disgrace. The real Alicia calls Mary Albert forward, inviting her to stand before the future queen. Mary makes a disgusted face, clearly displeased by the lack of hostility in Alicia's voice. Patrick notes the finale is unstoppable, while Addie calls out to his mistress one last time. Mary grins wildly, declaring that she has no desire to stop the inevitable flow of events. Alicia looks down from the stage and asks Mary for her honest opinion on the speech. Mary stares up in silence, her expression unreadable as she processes the question. She finds the situation exasperatingly game-like, recognizing this as the villainess's final lifeline. Mary reflects that while an apology would earn forgiveness in a typical route, she has other plans. She sneers that such a compassionate, country-smelling idea is truly laughable. Mary prepares to deliver a scathing rejection, refusing to accept the hand of forgiveness. Alicia suddenly breaks into a radiant smile, shattering the tension with her pure joy. She thanks Mary for helping her find the resolve to be a princess without losing herself. Alicia explains that Mary's consistent treatment gave her confidence, while Mary panics at the praise. To Mary's horror, Alicia loudly declares her love, completely ruining the villainous condemnation event. Patrick asks Mary to work together with him to support the country, framing it as a noble duty. Mary stands frozen in silence, her mind going blank at the unexpected proposal. Patrick bursts into laughter, finding her stunned reaction absolutely hilarious. He continues to laugh uncontrollably, wiping tears from his eyes as Mary remains paralyzed. Mary finally lets out a strange, defeated noise as her soul seems to leave her body. Addie cheerfully congratulates her, noting that she has technically achieved her goal. Mary snaps back in fury, screaming that her true goal was to raise chickens in the north. Addie reveals that the Albert family is now hailed as loyal, completely ruining her villainous reputation. He explains how the public has romanticized her actions into a beautiful tale of self-sacrifice. Addie asks if this perfect ending isn't actually better than the game's original conclusion. Mary collapses in despair, realizing all her efforts to become a villain have failed miserably. She frantically explains that her high test scores were just a plot to lower Patrick's rank, not to be a good student. Addie suggests she take her revenge to university, but Mary refuses to accept this fate. A quiet moment passes between them as the weight of the future settles in. Addie smiles gently, reaffirming his promise to follow her no matter where she goes. Their moment is interrupted as Alicia calls out to Mary from down the hall. Mary immediately reverts to her strict persona, screaming at the bumpkin to stop running. She pauses mid-scold, looking back with a confused expression as the scene fades. They introduces Mary's infamous nickname at the beauty salon, known far and wide as the hairdresser killer Golden Drills. Addie cheerfully comments that her drills are looking particularly drillsome and strong today. Mary demands to know what drillsome means, while Addie observes that her ringlets seem to be winding tighter than usual. 2 years pass since Mary began her undergraduate studies, yet the stubborn nature of her hair continues to bother her. A montage of salon visits shows Mary's repeated attempts to tame her hair, accompanied by the sparkling sound of hope. Mary pouts and complains that Addie still treats her too much like a child despite her growth. A close-up reveals the intricate, almost architectural structure of her silver hair as she contemplates a change. Addie calls out to her, his expression serious as he prepares for another attempt at the salon. They arrive at the hairdresser's, the familiar barber pole signaling the start of another battle against the drills. The hairdresser welcomes them with a nervous smile, assuring Mary that this time it will surely go well. Internally, the hairdresser prays for success, determined not to disdain the drills that have defeated so many predecessors. She psyches herself up to avenge her fallen colleagues who perished trying to straighten those ironclad ringlets. Mary requests a gentle wavy hairstyle like her mother's, noting that she is a university student now. The hairdresser apologizes for the wait, her spirit broken as she admits her heart has already given up on the task. To Mary's surprise, the hairdresser announces it is done much faster than expected. A heartbeat thumps loudly as the moment of truth arrives for the new hairstyle. Mary swallows nervously, waiting to see if the curse of the drills has finally been broken. The doorbell rings as the stylist finishes her work, signaling the end of the appointment. Addie assumes failure and calls from outside that it is pointless, urging her to give up and go eat. He turns around to see his mistress and freezes in pure shock at the sight before him. Mary steps out with perfectly loose, wavy hair and shyly asks Addie how she looks. Addie screams in terror and asks if she is all right, completely flustered by the sudden transformation. He panics and suggests they call a doctor, claiming her hair looks too soft and must be hurting her. Patrick arrives and compliments the new look, telling Mary that the hairstyle and outfit fit her very well. Alicia congratulates Mary, acknowledging that it really was a long and difficult battle against the hair. Mary triumphantly declares that she has defeated the insolent drills and demands they go show everyone. A panicked maid rushes over and asks Mary to lay down, rudely asking who this person without the drills is. The maid screams asking where Mary fell, shocked that she can move without her core component. Mary stares in silent fury, unamused by the implication that her drills were her main body. Patrick laughs that everyone is just joking, while Addie stammers in fear of his mistress's wrath. Mary puffs out her cheeks in anger, retorting that of course she is still herself. She threatens to slap a dismissal notice on Addie if he was serious, while he babbles about the guard not recognizing her. Patrick interrupts the comedy routine by gently reaching for Mary's hand. He looks at her with intense seriousness, stating that he understands how she feels. Mary ignores the moment to scream at Addie, claiming her drills took all his kindness with them when they vanished. She storms off in a huff, wondering why her servants are so disrespectful and threatening to fire them all. Mary stands alone on the balcony, looking out at the scenery as she tries to calm down. Patrick approaches her from behind and quietly asks if he could touch her hair. He looks at her with a gentle expression, waiting for her permission to touch the new style. Mary wonders why he is asking now but blushes and agrees, telling him she doesn't mind. A gentle hand gathers strands of hair, preparing to style them with delicate precision. Addie hums a soft tune as he works, treating Mary's hair with the same care he would give to fragile glasswork. He steps back to admire his handiwork, telling Mary that the new look is beautiful and fits her perfectly. Mary touches her hair, wondering internally why his simple words affect her so deeply. Blushing, she awkwardly thanks him, admitting that receiving such direct praise is embarrassing. She reflects that Addie's words have a unique way of penetrating straight to her heart. The narrator notes that the trademark solid drills are gone, replaced by a softer, straighter style. Mary muses that she has changed so much she might not even be recognized as Mary Albert if she studies abroad. Patrick furiously demands to know why she didn't tell him about her plans to study at a foreign university. His expression darkens as he mutters that he knew it would end up like this if he let her be. He sighs in frustration, regretting that the conversation is spiraling while Alicia looks on anxiously. Mary tries to downplay the situation, explaining it's only for a year at a border university, but Alicia pouts. Patrick relents slightly, saying he will allow it only if she agrees to his strict conditions. He demands she return home immediately on days off, but Mary flatly refuses the exhausting schedule. She argues that crossing the country border every single day for school is absolutely ridiculous. Mary realizes she has been spoiled lately, but she aggressively drinks her tea to suppress her rising irritation. Patrick covers his mouth, realizing he got carried away and accidentally revealed his overprotective nature. He doubles down on the harsh travel itinerary, insisting she leave just in time for lectures. Addie and Mary scream in unison, demanding to know why she needs Patrick's permission in the first place. Mary shouts that she is no longer a troublesome child who needs a servant to accompany her to school. Patrick insists she has things to learn here, but Mary counters that her desired education is at Corellia Academy. Addie grabs Mary's hands, asking intensively if she truly understands what needs to be done. The camera zooms in on their clasped hands, highlighting the tension and connection between them. Addie looks at her with deep concern, unable to believe she is going out of his reach. Mary looks away, admitting that just thinking about the separation makes her feel physically unwell. She turns her head sharply, leaving Alicia awestruck and Patrick looking resigned. Mary thinks to herself that she is becoming weak to Addie's intense stares and wonders how to reply. Addie finally accepts her decision with a simple, okay, though his expression remains serious. Mary smiles and promises to return regularly, acknowledging that their separation is unnatural after being together so long. Patrick screams that he sees no compromise and demands she stick to the impossible travel plan. They bicker about her course of study, with Patrick questioning the utility of a migratory bird bowl store degree. Patrick sips his tea and notes they are almost there, asking why the group is always this chaotic. Mary strikes a pose and asks the two men if they have any comments on her appearance. Patrick smiles and admits the hairstyle suits her well, though he teasingly denies it signifies maturity. He mocks her by calling it her second form, causing Mary to snap that she was a fool to expect a compliment. Addie laughs and gently warns her that if she gets too angry, her hair might roll back up into drills. Addie stands outside a door with a small jar of flowers, quietly preparing for the pivotal moment of the graduation ceremony. Patrick stares up at the academy tower and murmurs about a jinx, his expression clouded with unease. Mary cheerfully explains that the graduation bouquet is a tradition passed down to be given to loved ones, terrifying Patrick, who fears a tragic death. Patrick recoils in horror at the idea of a cursed item, but Mary deadpans that she would not hesitate to push it on him if it were. He tries to rationalize that no matter the cost, it is ultimately just a bundle of flowers without magical properties. Mary's expression softens as she explains that the bouquet carries the weight of her feelings from her time at school. Patrick realizes the romantic implication, noting that students give it to friends to confess or lovers as a token of undying love. He gazes at Mary while a crowd of girls gathers in the background, asking if she intends to give hers to him. Addie interrupts the moment, arguing that staring in silence achieves nothing and urging Mary to simply pin him down. Mary looks conflicted, admitting that the situation is not as simple as her servant makes it out to be. Suddenly, Addie warns that Alicia is charging toward them at an incredible speed just before impact. A cloud of dust erupts as the heroine slams into the villainess with the force of a cannonball. Alicia clings tightly to Mary, who struggles to maintain her balance under the sudden assault. Mary disgustedly tells Alicia to get away, while Addie praises himself for a nice follow-up on the situation. Addie chides Mary for focusing on a country girl instead of guarding her master, noting Alicia's speed has improved. Alicia beams in her new outfit, asking how she can help, while Mary sparkles with annoyance at the intrusion. Mary coldly dismisses her, asking why she doesn't just leave since they are busy, but Alicia is unfazed. Alicia excitedly points out that she and Mary are matching because they are both wearing pink ribbons. Patrick watches the interaction and realizes that Alicia is struggling to decide who to give her bouquet to. Alicia grips her bouquet tightly, resolving to make her choice on the count of 3. She suddenly thrusts the flowers toward Mary, prompting Mary to threaten her with dirt and violence if she proceeds. Alicia tears up and confesses that both Mary and Patrick are important, so she cannot choose between them. Mary refuses to accept the flowers and suggests Alicia disperse them under her authority as a princess instead. Watching Patrick in the distance, Mary notes he wouldn't want the bouquet to get buried under the pile he already received. Alicia whispers that she only has one bouquet to give, making the decision impossible. Addie mischievously suggests putting the flowers on the wrong side of the balance to trick the next person. He calls it a game to see how many flowers one can pile on Patrick, but Mary dismisses it as a dirty strategy. Alicia suddenly declares she has a good idea, though her expression remains blank and unreadable. Mary and Addie lean in, skeptical of what the good idea from the heroine might be. Alicia suggests leaving the bouquet on Patrick's bag, but Mary questions if that counts as receiving it. Mary blushes and admits she would rather have dirt thrown on her face than miss the chance to hand it over in person. Addie intervenes, claiming there is a special way to get the flowers to Patrick without choosing. He whispers the plan to Alicia, instructing her to put the bouquet in her mouth. Patrick looks horrified by the suggestion while Alicia stares blankly, trying to process the strange command. Alicia thanks them enthusiastically and dashes off to execute the plan, leaving Mary confused. Mary demands to know what he said, but Addie deflects by saying he has something important to tell her. Alicia sprints away, recalling that she and Patrick were once engaged despite their current breakup. Addie instructs Mary to blame him if anything goes wrong, assuring her it is not her fault. As Alicia disappears in a cloud of dust, Addie asks Mary what she will do if Patrick gets mad at him for this. Addie sighs with relief, expressing his belief that Patrick will stay calm and realize Mary wasn't the mastermind. Patrick bellows Mary's name in a fit of rage, startling the entire group and leaving Alicia trembling in fear. Mary immediately sides with Patrick, scolding Addie for his foolishness while he tries to deflect the blame with a grin. Addie cuts through the chaos with a sharp "hey" to grab their attention. He asks Mary what she plans to do with her bouquet, admitting he has no intention of keeping flowers in his own room. Addie teases that a single bouquet isn't enough to purify her hidden stash, causing Mary to glare at him for comparing her room to a magic cave. He suggests she hand the flowers over to a skilled maid who can transform them into dried flower decorations. Addie explains he discovered the maid's talent while helping in the garden, sparking his curiosity about the craft. Mary hums thoughtfully, considering the practical solution for preserving the blooms. Without warning, Addie thrusts his own bouquet toward her and demands she take his flowers as well. He argues that they will only wither in his care, encouraging her to turn them into a lasting decoration instead. Mary hesitates, clutching the stems and reminding him that it is his personal bouquet. Addie insists he doesn't mind parting with it, flashing a smile as he asks if she is okay with the arrangement. In a sudden burst of enthusiasm, Mary offers to give him her bouquet in exchange. Addie freezes, his face flushing as he stares at her in stunned silence. He stammers that it would be an exchange, nervously rambling about the buds lasting for a while. Panic sets in as he frantically begs her not to exchange her flowers with anyone else, his composure completely crumbling. Mary cheerfully misinterprets his fluster, declaring that the flowers will face a tragic death to become immortal decorations. She fiercely clutches the bouquet to her chest, promising she won't give them to anyone else because they are hers. Addie agrees softly, a gentle look of relief washing over his face. He gazes affectionately at the flowers, whispering, "My lady," in a quiet moment of connection. Mary looks down, a soft blush coloring her cheeks as she processes the moment. The scene shifts to a view of Isekai'd University, standing tall and imposing in the distance. Mary throws herself onto her bed, shouting with determination that she is ready to study business management. A pair of elegant shoes steps firmly onto the ground, marking the beginning of a new chapter. A soft gasp escapes as the realization of her new life finally sets in. Mary stretches in front of the mirror and murmurs, "All right," as she steels herself for the day. She announces that it is finally her first day attending Isekai'd University. The narrative describes the university as the prestigious institution where the sons of noblemen and wealthy merchants receive their education. The chairman reassures Mary that she will get used to the sister school arrangement quickly, noting she will be seen every day. He mentions they renovated the tea room, and Mary expresses a keen interest in seeing the changes. The chairman reveals there is another transfer student, prompting Mary to mentally prepare for dealing with potential arrogance. He explains that the administration decided to place Mary and the other student in the same class for their mutual benefit. Mary thanks him for his consideration, expressing relief that she won't have to wander the university halls alone. Walking down the grand hallway, Mary tries to dismiss a nagging feeling that something is amiss, hoping it is just her imagination. She arrives at the faculty door and knocks politely to announce her presence. Mary enters the room and assures the occupant that they have arrived just on time. Upon seeing the professor, Mary internally critiques him as looking like a total ladies' man despite his position. She politely introduces herself as Mary Albert, masking her internal judgment with proper etiquette. The professor smiles and identifies her immediately as the daughter of the Albert family. A new girl cheerfully introduces herself to the room as Lillian, catching Mary completely off guard. Mary freezes as she hears the name, frantically trying to place where she knows that voice from. A dark-haired female student glares with intense hostility, adding to the sudden tension in the room. Mary stares in bewilderment, her mind racing to comprehend the strange familiarity of the scene. She stands frozen in shock, unable to articulate her confusion as events unfold. A young man offers his assistance, telling Mary to be sure to let him know if she needs anything. Mary is struck by a sudden, horrifying realization as she looks at the people around her. The pieces of the puzzle click together, leaving her stunned as the reality of her situation becomes undeniable. She despairs at the revelation that this world is still operating exactly like an otome game. The narrative explains the sequel Doki Doki Love School 2, False Bride and True Love, featuring a commoner protagonist named Lillian. This sequel introduced a mechanic where the protagonist must break the target's engagements, framing the act as finding true love. Mary recalls that because she was the villain in the first game, she appears in the sequel as a recurring rival on every route. She introduces herself to the class while internally panicking that Mary Albert shouldn't be here in this sequel. As she takes an empty seat, Mary reasons that a defeated villainess should have no business being in this classroom. The dark-haired girl strategically contemplates which route to take while Lillian cheerfully laughs about getting lost. Sparks fly between the dark-haired rival and Lillian as they exchange intense glances, foreshadowing the conflict to come. Mary closes her eyes and lets out a heavy sigh, exhausted by the absurdity of her recurring role. She regrets not bringing her attendant along, realizing she needs support to navigate this new game. Back at the mansion, Addie bows as if called, while Patrick asks what is wrong and Alicia weeps for her mistress. Mary reflects on her time at Alemsiana Academy, noting how she has been surrounded by people seeking her status. Despite the crowd, she realizes that genuine connections are rare and the girl who used to carry her bag is gone. Enjoying her meal, Mary muses that her current jealousy-free relationships are far more fitting than the past. Gossip ripples through the cafeteria as students whisper about the latest academy news. The chatter centers on the academy becoming the talk of the town, hinting at a significant new arrival. Lillian makes a grand entrance with her entourage, sparking immediate tension and calls for peace. Mary identifies Lillian as the protagonist of Dora Dora, and notes she transferred on the same day. Instinctively, Mary calls out to Addie, only to be met with silence and an empty chair. Mary narrates how Lillian has successfully charmed the popular men and begun her academy life. Observing Lillian with Professor Kane, Mary deduces that Lillian likely retains memories of her previous life. Mary shifts her focus to Karina, contrasting the girl's quiet, calculated demeanor with Lillian's antics. Karina eats silently, internally planning her goal to learn management and open a tavern. She analyzes the situation with cold logic, wondering why things have turned out this way. Lillian describes the taste of the fish with excessive, performative sensuality to charm those around her. Lillian spots Karina and approaches her table, politely asking if she may sit with her. Karina accepts the intrusion, and Lillian thanks her with an exaggerated display of gratitude. Lillian sits down, and Karina stares at her, bluntly asking what she wants. Karina notices the 2 portions of food and sharply asks if Lillian was accompanied by someone. Lillian smiles sheepishly, admitting she prepared 2 portions out of habit and asking for secrecy. A heavy silence falls over the table as the 2 girls continue their meal in awkward proximity. Lillian glances nervously at Karina, sensing the growing tension and judgment. Karina remains stone-faced while the narrator reveals that her fiancé Guys was stolen by Lillian. Karina reflects on her precarious position, knowing she has lost the authority and protection of the Marquis family. She abruptly stands up to leave, causing Lillian to flinch in surprise at the sudden movement. Lillian panics and asks if she bothered her, but Karina denies it with a cold, detached look. Karina glares down at her, accusing Lillian of acting with unbearable pretense. The atmosphere darkens as Karina ominously declares that this is the last meal Lillian will ever eat. Lillian feigns ignorance and cheerfully invites Lord Guys to join, ignoring the threat entirely. The weight of the situation crushes Lillian as she slumps over the table in apparent defeat. She mutters Mary's name in despair, clearly overwhelmed by the turn of events. Karina speaks of the broken engagement rumors, stating she doesn't wish to be involved with the drama. Lillian looks on in shock as Karina reveals she knows Lillian is accompanying her without agreement. A flashback reveals the emotional turmoil as someone shouts not to cry amidst the chaotic scene. Karina wipes her tears, realizing she is as weak as the sheltered ladies she once despised. She compares herself to Alicia, noting that unlike her, Alicia is sharp and uncompromising like a sword. Lillian tries to apologize to Mary but stumbles over the names, while Karina cuts her off with indifference. Karina addresses her former fiancé Guys, admitting she doesn't care about being thrown away by him. She reaffirms her indifference, stating she doesn't care if he walks next to her or not. Karina advises Lillian to be confident in her choices since she has the right to be. A hand reaches out, offering a gesture of support to lead her away from the scene. The scene shifts as the decision is made to leave, signaling a departure from the current conflict. Lillian smiles through her tears, finding a moment of clarity or resolution in the chaos. Mary walks towards the light, declaring the end of her perfect academy life. As she exits the stage, a dramatic start introduces Lord Guys amidst accusations of being terrible, setting a chaotic tone right from the opening panel. 6 months post-arrival, Mary observes Lillian surrounded by a harem, prompting a sympathetic comment about her hardships. Mary's companion expresses outrage that a certain man left her behind instead of offering a proper escort. The friend notes with shock that he has never neglected her in such a rude manner before. Reminiscing on the past, she recalls how his gaze was always fixed solely upon her. Although their engagement was arranged by parents, she truly believed their feelings were mutual until this shift occurred. A new figure enters the scene with a smile, prompting a confused inquiry about his identity. Mary identifies the ivory-haired boy as the headmaster's son, a hidden character capable of causing unforeseen trouble. Noticing he stands out, Mary teases her flushed friend by asking if she is curious about him too. Her friend denies the interest, but Mary presses on, playfully accusing her of being the curious one. Flustered and defensive, the girl shouts that she couldn't care less what happens to him. Internal monologue reveals that Mary Albert is a recognized character within this otome game world. As a fallen villainess meant to flee north, she considers herself an irrelevant foreign student not even featured on the fan disc. Mary walks through the corridors with a stoic expression, observing the unfolding drama from a distance. Exhausted by the narrative, she laments her tiredness and resolves to avoid getting entangled in any specific route. A mocking voice sneers, "Shallow bitches," from the shadows, catching Mary's attention. Mary realizes her deviation from the game's script has made others wary, suspecting someone else remembers their past life. While Lillian flirts and Karina gathers allies to avoid her ending, Mary finds herself studying abroad in this chaotic world. To someone who knows the original story, the schemes of those around her are pitifully easy to read. A voice calls out to Lady Karina in admiration, highlighting her growing influence. The scene shifts with a sharp sound, marking a transition in the social dynamic. It becomes apparent that Karina is watching Mary, sparking a question about their relationship. Mary analyzes that Lillian targets the Albert family's power, while Karina focuses on foreign diplomacy. With a confident smirk, Mary muses that she could easily steal the men away from her rival. She shocks her friend by jokingly suggesting she could get Guys, asserting her family's influence would make it easy. When asked if there is someone else, Mary coldly claims she doesn't know him anymore. Her friend confesses that she constantly thinks about her own love interest whenever he is out of sight. The confession strikes a chord, causing Mary's eyes to widen in sudden realization. A moment of hesitation follows as Mary processes the depth of those feelings. Mary reflects that she once thought marrying Patrick was destiny due to their backgrounds, not realizing he was free to choose. Snapping back to reality, she claims her previous comment was just a joke and tells the others to leave if they don't like it. Laughing it off to hide her inner turmoil, she resolves to be stronger and ignore their words. The narrative shifts abruptly as it is revealed that the influential girl's bullets have missed their target today. The name Gyuja's Erdland rings out, commanding attention and signaling the arrival of a key player. To everyone's shock, the man halts his steps not before the heroine, but directly in front of Mary. Shock paints Mary's face as she questions why he has approached her instead of the expected target. She concludes that while this world is a game, it functions like a delicate arrangement rather than a set script. The chapter closes with a serene image of tea and flowers, contrasting the tension of the social maneuvering. The story opens with the burning question of whether Lady Parfit has descended into villainy this time around. Reflecting on the previous game, Love Academy 1, the narrative recalls how Mary Albert served as the obvious antagonist designed to relentlessly torment the heroine. In the sequel, Love Academy 2, the dynamic shifted significantly, allowing the main character to befriend her rivals with only a few specific exceptions. Parfit deeply despised Lillian and sought isolation, yet despite gayness being stolen away, the two women were never on particularly bad terms. Following the game's script perfectly, Parfit is destined to withdraw of her own volition once friendship blooms and gayness begins to waver. The marriage between Parfit and gayness was purely political, orchestrated by their parents with absolutely no romantic feelings existing between the pair. However, the former crybaby Parfit defies expectations and takes decisive action to change the minds of those opposing the couple due to their social standing. Addie reveals a shocking contradiction, insisting that Parfit confessed she truly yearned to be with gayness despite his relationship with Lillian. Addie accuses the listener of being suspiciously sympathetic to Parfit, prompting a stammered denial and a claim of merely imagining her pain due to status differences. The servant maintains that while he sympathizes with Lady Parfit's circumstances, they are not acquaintances, having only seen her once at a party. Addie accepts this explanation, acknowledging that the situation is simply how it appears. Mary erupts into tears, convinced Patrick's empathy stems from a forbidden, tormenting love for her own father. Astounded by this misunderstanding, Mary expresses shock that Patrick longed for her father so intensely, leaving him completely bewildered. Patrick urges Mary to get her head out of the gutter, but she insists his sympathy for Parfit stems from his own inability to approach the one he loves due to social standing. Shifting to the present crisis, Patrick asks what Mary plans to do about this otome game scenario, while she melodramatically begs forgiveness for interfering. Mary declares she will do absolutely nothing and focus on management and learning, aiming to establish an international Toraidon business instead. Patrick agrees this is the best call, and Mary laments that she cannot rely on past memories since Mary does not exist in the game Dora Dora. Regardless of House Albert's standing, Mary resolves to do as she pleases, planning to make her rival bawl at least once. Patrick notes his goals are weakening, but Mary brutally cuts him off, commanding him to shut it immediately. Alicia arrives with a cheerful welcome, prompting Mary to greet her with enthusiastic shouting. Alicia spots the male servant, questioning his presence with a suspicious glance. She immediately brands him a traitor for coming in on his time off, though he insists he remains a loyal ally at heart. Alicia sharply accuses him of being the battalion commander of the girls' support squad, despite his claims of allegiance. Patrick strikes a pose, roaring that he is the Corellia HQ's battalion commander of Alicia-chan's support squad. Mary scolds Patrick for his hillbilly stench rubbing off on her, while he retorts that she is the one constantly nuzzling him. Patrick mocks the princess's bumpkinness on full display and suggests they might as well start planning her exile now. Someone calls him a sex maniac, but he smoothly counters that this side of her just makes her even more charming. It becomes evident that his cold and distant demeanor at Doragaku was nothing more than a complete facade. Mary asks if he had plans, and Patrick admits he must excuse himself for a bit despite coming to see her. Alicia laughs at the display, calling it simply disgusting to watch the two of them flirt like imbeciles. Patrick casually reveals he has to go meet a marriage prospect even on his holiday, leaving Alicia visibly flustered. The revelation hangs in the air as Patrick looks on with a serious expression while Alicia remains stunned. Patrick bids Addie farewell, telling him to enjoy his time as he prepares to depart. The scene concludes with a final visual focus on Patrick's expression as the encounter comes to an end. Alicia is flabbergasted by the sudden apology, but she quickly rationalizes the situation by noting that an arranged marriage is an entirely reasonable and expected duty for a noblewoman of Mary's standing. The conversation shifts to the cold pragmatism of aristocracy, where unions are forged not from love but to secure powerful connections with the royal, Albert, and Dice families. A sharp, decisive agreement echoes through the garden as the group acknowledges the undeniable truth of these calculated political alliances. The group concludes that marrying Mary would instantly elevate a nameless house, as her beauty and wisdom make her the ultimate prize for anyone looking to fly up the social ladder. In the garden, Patrick is suddenly accosted by Lang and Lucian, who greet him with a mix of familiarity and imposing presence after a long absence. Alicia realizes these men are Mary's brothers and is surprised she hasn't met them before, despite her frequent visits to spend time with the Albert family. The brothers charm Alicia with promises of future meetings, explaining that their extended time abroad prevented them from crossing paths with her until this very moment. Dropping their facade, the brothers reveal they are guarding Mary from a deluge of suitors that swarmed in the moment somebody decided to break off his engagement. They admit their father's polite excuses are running thin and the household is in chaotic overdrive trying to screen the endless stream of opportunistic candidates. The brothers refuse to elaborate on the screening process because it angers them, citing their father's impossible standard that any suitor must rival Patrick of the Dice family. A realization dawns on the group that if Mary is entertaining a guest right now despite these strict standards, the visitor must be incredibly significant. A polished shoe steps firmly onto the ground as the brothers confirm that today's partner is a special case and a formidable contender for Mary's hand. Addie deduces the suitor is from a prestigious house in a neighboring country, a VIP granted access solely due to vital diplomatic ties with the Alberts. Mary dismisses the threat, revealing the suitor has no intention of marrying her because he loves another, and she plans to use this to shatter the arrangement immediately. She resolves to play the pining for Prince Charming card to escape, shocking Addie with her nonchalant willingness to exploit Patrick's name for her schemes. Mary doubles down on her strategy, arguing that rumors of her unrequited love for Patrick are a powerful weapon to repel other unwanted suitors. Addie is appalled by her lack of consideration for others' feelings, while Mary cheerfully jokes that deceiving people with Patrick's legacy is a brilliant tactical move. He tentatively asks if the situation is uncomfortable for her, but when she fails to grasp his meaning, he struggles to articulate the emotional toll it takes on him. A heavy silence falls as Addie confirms, "That's right," with a pained expression, acknowledging the hidden hurt he carries. He finally confesses the agony of standing in the shadows as a servant, forced to watch the woman he loves converse with potential husbands. Frustrated by her density, he wishes he could sit by her side as an equal, but Mary completely misinterprets his angst as a jab at her drill-shaped hair. Mary attempts to apologize by offering to braid her hair, leaving Addie to sigh at her obliviousness while he suggests finding a way to stay physically closer during the meeting. Addie resigns himself to her misunderstanding but appreciates her clumsy attempt to care, steeling himself as the dreaded meeting is about to commence. He begs her to conclude the meeting rapidly, admitting that his heart simply cannot bear the torture of watching her with another man for a second longer. Addie implores Mary to conclude the impending meeting as rapidly as possible, his expression desperate and serious for his own sake. Mary turns in surprise, her eyes widening as she processes the unusual intensity of her butler's request. A deep flush spreads across Addie's face as he realizes the boldness of his demand to his master. Panic sets in as Addie berates himself for selfishly interfering with such a crucial meeting, unable to believe he actually voiced his thoughts aloud. He bows his head in resignation, fully expecting to be dismissed for his unparalleled rudeness and interference. Mary looks confused by his distress before bursting into laughter, assuring him she doesn't mind and will wrap things up quickly. With a confident smile, she agrees to his terms, promising to act solely for his sake to ease his worry. She boldly declares she will finish the meeting in world record time, challenging him to time her speed. As the maid announces the guest, Mary mentally prepares her ultimate technique of playing a heartbroken girl still pining for Patrick to force a rejection. Mary's confidence falters the moment she sees Gainas, his stiff and serious demeanor suggesting this won't be the quick victory she anticipated. Mary introduces herself with a polite smile, masking her internal frustration as she initiates what she hopes will be a brief conversation. Gainas sits in tense silence while Mary internally fumes, realizing her father lied about this not being a formal marriage interview. She recognizes him as Gainas Eldrand, a character supposed to be engaged to Parfait but now ensnared by Liliane's schemes. The atmosphere is thick with tension as Mary laments the bothersome nature of this inescapable arrangement orchestrated by their parents. The silence is broken when Gainas suddenly speaks, his gaze drifting past Mary to call out the name, Addie. Mary observes Addie pouring tea with mechanical precision, sensing a strange and unsettling distance radiating from him today. Addie maintains a professional facade, leaving Mary to wonder if her promise to finish quickly is causing this awkward rift. Guilt gnaws at her as she realizes she cannot simply cut the conversation short, feeling the distance between them grow despite his earlier encouragement. Gainas fixes his gaze with sudden intensity, declaring that it is finally time to address the elephant in the room. He clumsily suggests Addie leave the room so they can share some whiskey alone, a tired excuse that Mary immediately sees through. Annoyed by this uncharacteristic behavior, Mary watches in shock as Addie immediately complies, asking her to open the door since his hands are full. Addie flashes a bright, genuine smile that breaks his servant persona, thanking her warmly for the help. Mary finds herself unable to complain, her frustration melting away as he presents her with a freshly baked scone. Gaines notices her distraction and asks if something is wrong, snapping Mary back to the present moment. She quickly recovers with a polite smile, dismissing his concern by claiming she was simply lost in thought. Gaines becomes visibly flustered, stammering that he was joking and had no idea she harbored such intense feelings for him. Mary lets out a heavy sigh, running a hand through her hair in sheer exasperation at his gross misunderstanding. She coldly asks him not to take her words so seriously, shutting down his delusion immediately. A heavy, awkward silence descends upon the room as Gaines retreats into sullen quietness under the chandelier. Outside the room, Addie stands sentinel with eyes closed, his duty fulfilled but his presence missed. Mary's eyes narrow as she realizes the shift in the atmosphere and the awkwardness of her suitor. She observes that Gaines is far too stiff to keep up with her sarcasm, his rigid demeanor making him an easy target. Mary self-deprecatingly describes herself as gloomy and useless to drive him away, only to realize she has been fixated on him all day. Gaines interrupts her internal monologue with a loud, deliberate clearing of his throat to regain attention. He claims to understand the situation perfectly, advising her to simply ignore the distraction and focus on the matter at hand. Mary realizes Gaines maneuvered Addie out of the room on purpose to speak privately, despite the impropriety of being alone together. She recalls Addie's apology for his rudeness as he excused himself to wait outside the door per the guest's request. Mary bitterly notes that nobles always treat Addie as invisible or unwanted, while Gaines exhales invisible relief. She resigns herself to the fact that she cannot blame Gaines, as such dismissive behavior toward servants is second nature to the aristocracy. With a sharp resolve, Mary stands up to end the charade, accepting that she is the anomaly for wishing to treat her servants as human beings. Gaines bows deeply in apology, taking full responsibility for what his father has done. He admits fault for not refusing his father, who took the liberty of arranging this meeting without consulting him. Mary acknowledges his apology with a short, curt response. She surmises his father wants to wake up his blind son who fell for a commoner by arranging a meeting with another woman, which Gaines admits is embarrassing but true. Mary validates the father's perspective, noting that a high-status heir falling for a commoner surrounded by other men destroys the beautiful story of their lineage. She points out the hypocrisy of calling out to a fellow aristocrat while maintaining his engagement with the Parfit household. Mary coldly states she has no chance of being picked amidst his flood of offers, though she claims to understand his father's logic. She drops the hammer, revealing that his father invited the Albert family's daughter directly. Gaines sweats as Mary exposes the scheme to use diplomatic connections and her status to win over a naughty son under the guise of a non-arranged meeting. He admits she is absolutely right and confesses that he completely underestimated the daughter of the Albert family. The tension shifts as Mary asks him point-blank what he intends to do now. She declares she doesn't care about his feelings for Lillian or his place in her harem, as getting involved with her is simply too much pain. Mary cuts through the noise, stating there is only one specific thing she wants to know. She stares him down, demanding he voice his course of action regarding the engagement. She challenges him to decide if he will continue being played by that lustful woman as just another member of her harem. Gaines agrees he needs to talk to Parfit properly soon, and Mary hopes he has the sincerity to take the blame when the time comes. He vows to take responsibility and not run away from his decision no matter what the world says, prompting Mary to tell him to remember those words. He awkwardly suggests dinner for just the two of them, insisting it isn't out of guilt, but Mary immediately excuses herself. Gaines panics, trying to explain that his father already set up a place for them since he caused her trouble. Mary realizes he has been engaged to Parfit since childhood and is completely inept at dealing with women he hasn't known forever. She shuts down the date idea instantly with a flat refusal. Instead, she suggests they have tea with everyone once everything is resolved, asking if that isn't enough. Gaines accepts this compromise, admitting she is right even though he lacks the standing to say so. As he leaves, Mary reflects that his friendship with Parfit is none of her business, though she notes he is trying not to hurt her despite loving Lillian. Gaines offers a final, silent bow of respect before retreating through the doors. Mary muses that she would rather be dumped by an awful man than be stuck unable to cut ties later. Patrick appears with a knowing smile, asking if the ordeal is finally over. Mary lets out a soft chuckle as the tension of the meeting dissipates. Patrick turns his back to the door, apologizing for keeping her waiting. Mary decides to return to Alicia and the others to continue their tea party, ready to report that the matter is closed. She smiles radiantly, admitting to Patrick that she failed to finish the meeting quickly. Patrick pauses, looking back at her with a contemplative silence as they prepare to leave. He suddenly covers his face, overwhelmed by a flush of emotion he tries to hide. Regaining his composure, Patrick agrees to go get more cookies. As they head off together, they resumes with a warm welcome back for Mary from her attendant. Mary beams with a radiant and affectionate smile in the garden. Patrick and Alicia stand awkwardly together as Alicia regrets not retreating to her room earlier. Tea is poured with an unsettling sound effect that signals potential disaster. Alicia nervously serves the tea while Mary invites her to sit down. Mary harshly grades the tea service at a mere 40 points to the maid's shock. Patrick remarks on the severity of the critique as the atmosphere grows tense. Patrick loudly declares the tea tastes bad and dismisses Alicia's claim that her parents enjoyed it. He lists the tea's flaws from temperature to astringency and scolds Alicia for imitating a maid. Patrick sighs at Alicia's density while the maid tries to apologize for the situation. He tells the maid not to be angry at Alicia and offers a gentle smile. The narrator reveals that Patrick actually loves Alicia's tea despite his harsh words. Patrick announces he will train Alicia but insists on drinking the maid's tea for now. The maid internally vows never to brew tea for her lady while Alicia is present. Patrick whispers that he is the maid's ally, but she immediately brands him a traitor. They banter about his self-proclaimed rank as commander of the support squad. The maid laughs at his joke about the impossibility of promotions and recruiting new members. Patrick expertly serves tea to the group and displays the grace of a professional. Mary enjoys the tea while the maid looks horrified by the flavor or context. Patrick invites Mary and the maid to dinner and purposefully excludes Alicia. He explains that Alicia is staying at her aunt's house, which clears the way for the trio. Alicia wishes Mary luck with her university studies before preparing to leave. The maid is bewildered by the sudden farewell and Alicia's cryptic comments. Alicia runs off in a hurry and ignores the maid's warning to walk gracefully. Alicia turns back to bid goodbye to Patrick and the maid before disappearing. The maid demands to know why Patrick is stifling laughter as he watches Alicia leave. Patrick tries and fails to suppress his amusement in front of the irritated maid. He deftly changes the subject by revealing he has already booked a restaurant. Patrick suggests they take multiple breaks on the way to the venue. The maid is puzzled by the schedule but apologizes for the trouble. She realizes Patrick planned the breaks to accommodate her severe carriage sickness. Patrick teasingly agrees to play the role of a heartbroken admirer to protect her reputation. The maid blushes as she understands the depth of his consideration. Patrick looks at her with a serious expression and addresses her as his lady. He asks if she is ready to depart and snaps her out of her daze. She agrees to his request as the moment becomes intimate. Patrick offers his hand with a charming smile and the maid accepts it. They walk off together while Mary laughs softly in the background. The maid learns that Roberto picked up the others earlier as they travel. Mary turns around in a hallway after hearing someone call her name. She greets Parfait and invites her for some tea in the school patio. Mary requests a private conversation with Parfait regarding a serious matter. Mary resolves to tell Parfait the truth about the arrangement, declaring she refuses to keep secrets and feel guilty about them. Parfait reacts with visible shock, her hands flying to her mouth as she processes the revelation. The clinking of ice marks the silence as Parfait stirs her drink and quietly accepts the information. Parfait wonders if Gainaz's father is a heartless man, though she notes Mary seems to have calmed down about the situation. Smiling warmly, Parfait defends the father as a kind man who treated her like his own daughter, sure this case is no different. She deduces the father likely wants her to give up on his son, reasoning it is better to end an amicable relationship officially. Parfait notes the Marquise and Erdland households are old friends, suggesting this connection is exactly what the father had in mind. She pragmatically observes that even 100 years of love can fade, citing how other noble ladies moved on after Liliane stole their fiancés. Mary listens intently, her expression unreadable as she absorbs Parfait's perspective. Parfait suddenly shifts the topic, asking point-blank if Mary still adores Patrick. Mary stares blankly, completely caught off guard by the abrupt personal question. Flustered, Mary demands to know why she has to answer such a thing while Parfait giggles. Parfait explains that rumors of a devoted prince whose love for Alicia transcends status have made Patrick increasingly popular. Mary vehemently denies any romantic connection, fearing one careless word could direct the flames of jealousy at her. She firmly states the good-hearted noble lady persona is a myth and insists she has no special feelings for him. Parfait counters by pointing out that Mary has refused all marriage offers since her engagement with Patrick was broken. Parfait admits this behavior led her to believe Mary still adored Patrick even after backing down. She explains how the story of the good-hearted daughter who stepped aside spread all the way to neighboring countries. The rumor exaggerated into Mary studying abroad to heal her broken heart, a narrative Mary finds self-pitying and annoying. Mary insists she only got involved to support Patrick and does not cling to the past engagement or love him. She claims to feel absolutely nothing when seeing Patrick and the others getting along, denying any lingering attachment. Mary maintains she is at the university solely for business administration and bird watching, though she admits it is painful in a different way. Parfait presses the core issue, asking specifically why Mary turned down all those offers if she truly doesn't care. Mary is struck speechless, asking herself, why indeed, as the realization hits. A heavy silence falls over the table as Mary struggles to find an answer to the simple question. The question lingers in the air as the two sit in the garden, with Mary deeply introspective. Mary rationalizes that Patrick is the perfect ideal man, so she would only choose someone on par with him. She recalls refusing all offers at parties and relying on her brothers for escorts to avoid approaching anyone. Mary questions why she keeps turning men down, acknowledging that her engagement with Patrick was good and the rumors make sense. She remembers Patrick telling her she could refuse his family's offers if she wanted, realizing she has no one else to talk to about this. Mary admits she never really thought about it, realizing Patrick was unique in knowing her true character. A warm memory of Patrick's smile surfaces, causing Mary to softly whisper his name. A sudden epiphany strikes Mary as she identifies exactly what makes Patrick different from everyone else. Mary looks up in wide-eyed shock as the realization fully takes hold. The moment is interrupted as a man and woman approach their table. The chapter concludes with a close-up of the newcomer's eyes as she greets them. Guinas resented maintaining a relationship purely for his parents' sake, mirroring the strained engagement between Parfait and Guinas in the original Dola Dola game lore. After breaking their engagement, Parfait and Guinas forged a friendship that allowed Parfait to support Liliane in her romance with Guinas once he discovered true love. Parfait became an immensely popular character with official merchandise due to her unique role as a supportive ally, ensuring Guinas's route ended happily for everyone involved. Liliane gazes longingly at Guinas and convinces herself that their connection is exactly as destiny intended it to be in her memories. She lets out a heavy sigh as she realizes with dread that the current reality shows absolutely no sign of the happy ending she expected. Guinas walks arm in arm with Liliane until Parfait suddenly calls out to the group with a look of obvious concern. Mary interrupts the scene by suggesting they move to a private location to avoid the prying eyes of the crowd surrounding them. Guinas demands an explanation for the interruption while Liliane clings possessively to his arm in a display of insecurity. Liliane smirks and dismissively tells Mary to stay put, claiming that the noblewoman has no further business interfering with them. Mary repeats the dismissal with a cold edge to her voice and questions if her presence is truly as unnecessary as claimed. She lowers her head in silence as her hair obscures her expression from the confident couple standing before her. Liliane taunts Mary for being a mere villainess who fell into ruin in every other ending, mocking her passivity since she has no role in Guinas's specific route. Mary glares with intense fury and refuses to stay silent, declaring that she is in the middle of an important conversation with Parfait. Parfait attempts to de-escalate the situation, but Guinas steps forward aggressively while Liliane watches in sudden alarm. Mary unleashes a verbal assault on Liliane, branding her a lusty commoner who does not deserve to stand on the same stage as the prestigious Albert House. Liliane trembles with humiliation as the biting insults strike a nerve and leave her face flushed with shame. Mary wipes her mouth with elegant disdain while Guinas glares at her, his temper flaring at the disrespect shown to his partner. The tension ripples through the patio as the surrounding students stop their conversations to witness the unfolding drama. Mary notes with satisfaction that her slander has captured the crowd's attention before loudly proclaiming her identity to the gathered students. She warns the tearful Liliane that making an enemy of the powerful Albert House could prove fatal to her entire family's status. Liliane calls the outburst rude, but Mary counters that she is simply stating facts about the owner of the prince position in the game. Mary turns her sharp gaze toward Guinas and challenges him with a provocative question regarding his stance. Gainas forces himself to remain calm while Mary internally revels in her perfect performance as the villainess she was born to be. Mary loudly flaunts the unmatched history and authority of the Albert House, declaring that no other family in the country can surpass their prestige. She internally dismisses Liliane as a rude peasant who dared to address a noble without a proper introduction, regardless of how the men view her. Mary sneers that allowing an idiot like Liliane to attend is a degradation to the prestigious Elysiana University. Liliane shakes uncontrollably as Mary explains that the university is a microcosm of high society where commoners sit at the bottom of the hierarchy. Mary asserts that Liliane's low status forbids her from casually addressing nobility, though she graciously invites the group to join her table. She commands Liliane to follow proper etiquette and introduce herself before the conversation continues. A bystander sipping a drink interrupts the tension by claiming he is an exchange student who knows none of their names. The group reacts in shock as Liliane turns away to hide her flushed face from the newcomer. Mary silently congratulates herself on a perfect villainous performance, noting that the time spent studying angles and hair movement was well worth it. Gainas stares intensely at Parfait while she meets his gaze with a look of lingering sadness. He asks to speak with her privately for a moment and Parfait quietly agrees to his request. Gainas asks Mary for permission to borrow Parfait and attempts to introduce himself, but Mary cuts him off impatiently and tells him to go. Gainas nods in understanding and states that he will remain nearby reading for a short while. Parfait apologizes for the delay while Mary scoffs at the remaining onlookers, dismissing them as cowards who lack the courage to intervene. Parfait welcomes her back with a smile, but Mary quickly covers her embarrassment by claiming she was merely reading a book and not waiting for anyone. Parfait trembles with emotion as Mary observes that the girl remains as frail and sensitive as she always was. Mary decides to deny the onlookers any further show and suggests they head to the classroom early for the next lecture. Parfait reveals that Gainas dumped her and that a formal document will be drafted to dissolve their engagement later. Although Gainas told her she could hit him until satisfied, Parfait admits she did not strike him despite his repeated apologies. Realizing she failed to notice Gainas's distress, she decides to support him now, acknowledging that Liliane was the one who healed him. They deduces that Liliane possesses memories of her past life as a fan of the game and is actively pursuing a reverse harem. Since Liliane is navigating the most difficult route of the game, the narrator reasons that Gainas's low-difficulty route poses no threat to her. Hardcore players prized the reverse harem ending for its immense difficulty, where even a single mistake could result in failure. This route culminates in the ultimate ending where all the male leads practice polyandry and coexist harmoniously with Liliane. The route offered exclusive scenarios and a supreme bonus image of all the targets lined up together, fueling player motivation. Noting that Liliane skipped the reconciliation with Parfait, the narrator realizes she is rushing toward the ending using her game memories. They suspect Liliane's true goal lies beyond the reverse harem ending, explaining her extreme haste. Caught in deep thought about the game's events, the narrator is startled when a friend asks if something is the matter. She quickly dismisses the concern, telling herself not to overthink things and to focus on the professor's lecture instead. Professor Kane stands at the front of the room, a deceptive figure who looks soft but is actually a difficult capture target. Liliane casts a charming wink at the professor, instantly capturing his attention and eliciting a smile. Watching the scene unfold, the realizes Liliane has already succeeded and that it is too late to intervene. Despite the romance playing out, the narrator decides she is indifferent to the teacher as long as he performs his duties properly. Patrick playfully holds out a fork and instructs Alicia to open wide for a bite. Realizing he acted out of habit in public, Patrick covers his eyes and claims he saw nothing while Alicia blushes in embarrassment. Patrick apologizes for the display and recalls suggesting they start the Albert family tea party without Mary. Adi notes that Mary is late due to construction at the border and mentions how naturally they spend time together at university. The group collectively denies the possibility that Mary is late because she is playing with friends, though Adi suggests she might have made some at Elysiana University. Patrick argues that he cannot imagine Mary playing with friends and doubts she could be that proactive after only a year abroad. They describe Mary as having a complex personality, like a two-faced demon or a wolf in sheep's clothing, who never carelessly lets strangers into her personal space. The group wonders why Alicia is so attached to Mary, noting that while Mary makes connections, she struggles to make actual friends. Alicia pauses eating her cake as she recalls a memory from the past. The narrative shifts back in time to a conversation that occurred a few months ago. In the flashback, Alicia cheerfully suggests to Mary that she doesn't need to return home every week if the others aren't participating. Mary notices Alicia's hesitation and asks what is troubling her. Alicia awkwardly tries to ask about Mary's birthplace, noting that Mary usually deflects such questions with a friendly smile. Determined to be open, Alicia declares she will not hide anything from Mary. Alicia boldly asks Mary if they can be friends, leaving Mary in a state of shock. Back in the present, Patrick recalls a similar memory from a few months ago, describing the interaction as sad. Patrick explains that he visited Mary to sincerely thank her for helping him succeed the Dice family and manage the royal family issue. He offered his assistance to her, stating that even if she were kicked out of the Albert household, he would help. Patrick passionately reassured Mary that no matter what happens to her, he will always be there to support her. He recalls her distant reaction, where she questioned why he would help her if she was no longer the daughter of the Albert house. Patrick sighs, acknowledging the heavy expectations Mary carries as the future matriarch of the Albert house. The scene focuses on Patrick's melancholic expression as he reflects on Mary's burden. Adi lists Mary's contradictions, noting she helps peel vegetables in the cafeteria yet hires designers for dresses, showing no interest in luxury despite her pedigree. He explains that while she doesn't act like a typical noble, she plays the role of the perfect noble daughter when duty calls. Mary switches between these extreme traits instantly, causing other nobles to call her an oddball behind her back. Adi observes that despite the mockery and gossip, Mary seems to genuinely enjoy talking to him and the maids. He believes she could make friends with someone who sees her for who she is, rather than just the Albert name, but questions if it has something to do with him. Adi teases Patrick, claiming that all the noble ladies are in love with him. Adi explains that Mary became twisted due to the jealousy she faced during high school when she was Patrick's fiancée. Patrick reacts angrily to the word twisted, arguing that Mary only sees him as a servant, but Adi insists on the blunt description. Adi observes Alicia's reaction and realizes something about the situation Patrick despairs, realizing his previous attempt to reach Mary failed because his roundabout approach made her think it was just banter. Adi notes they are back to zero, as Mary's reasoning is twisted into thinking people only value her as the daughter of the Albert house. Patrick laments that since his family has served the Alberts for generations, confessing his feelings in his current position could ruin his family. He wishes he had a title to make a formal offer, recognizing that Mary is a valuable diplomacy card for the family. The group discusses the strategy involving Adi's adoption, which forces Mary to come to them if she needs Patrick, thereby increasing his value to her. Alicia smiles and encourages Patrick, reminding him that Mary doesn't care about titles and might respond to his feelings simply because she is Mary. The scene visualizes Mary smiling, reinforcing Alicia's point about her true nature. The group agrees that because it is Mary, she is different from others and they shouldn't worry so much. Adi concludes that there is no way Mary would suddenly have a fiancé, as she doesn't have any other friends to facilitate such a connection. Two men banter about Milady's rejection of every proposal, teasing that she is destined to remain unmarried within the Albert family forever. Laughing uproariously, one agrees that no one would engage with her twisted personality and challenges the other to a fight if he objects. The other man stiffens in visible awkwardness, grinding his teeth as the conversation takes a dangerous turn. Lillian suddenly interrupts their conversation, appearing behind them with a sharp demand to know why they are lurking there. She imperiously reminds them that it is only natural for a daughter of the Albert house to be present in her own garden. Turning the accusation around, she demands to know how long they have been listening, dismissing their criticism of her tea party location. Lillian furiously scolds them for only listening to the parts that cause misunderstandings, specifically quoting their comment about dealing with Milady. The man defends himself, claiming he actually hoped she would overhear his struggles with courting her to ease his own worries. Parfait stares in confusion at the exchange, unable to grasp the context while the men fall silent. Ignoring the deflection, Lillian crosses her arms and demands a straight answer regarding the topic of their secret conversation. Parfait suddenly points out a cute bird nearby, her innocent distraction cutting through the mounting tension. A crow perches high on the wall, staring down at the group with an imposing and ominous presence. The visual impact of the bird creates a momentary pause in the dialogue, holding the group in a brief silence. A loud clearing of the throat snaps their attention back to the matter at hand, breaking the momentary distraction. They admit they were discussing Adi, revealing that he desperately wants a title to achieve a specific goal. Adi insists that his current status prevents him from acting, rejecting the idea that he is better off without the burden of a title. Liliane and Parfait are taken aback by this serious declaration, reacting with visible shock and confusion. Adi quickly backpedals, calling his desires selfish and telling them not to worry, though he quietly vows never to give up. Liliane finds his logic amusing, laughing as she labels him an oddball for having such strange tastes. Adi reflects that her concern is enough for him, noting that while adoption is an option, his father's feelings make it complicated. With characteristic boldness, Liliane declares that if he wants a title, she will grant it to him regardless of the obstacles. Adi smiles softly, silently appreciating her fierce determination and support. After he thanks her, Liliane presents the ultimate solution. He simply needs to marry her and join the Albert house directly. Mary wakes up with a massive yawn, irritated by the morning commotion outside her room. Glancing at the clock, she realizes with a start that it is already late in the morning. Clutching her stomach, Mary groans in pain as the consequences of her previous actions catch up to her. A flashback strikes her of yesterday's bold declaration, where she promised to convince her father to let Patrick join the Albert house. The memory of the stunning silence that followed her proposal hangs heavy in her mind. In the memory, she snaps at the stunned group for their silence after she went out of her way to buy them apple pie. Back in the present, she recalls eating the entire pie by herself out of spite and refuses to regret it despite the stomach ache. The scene shifts as Mary attempts to shake off the embarrassment of her gluttony and the previous day's events. Adi stares in concern as Mary frantically rushes to get ready, declaring that as a daughter of the Albert house she cannot delay getting dressed any longer. Mary muses that Patrick needs to live with more enthusiasm while remaining convinced that securing a title for him was a brilliant idea. Adi stands frozen, his face a mask of sheer horror and disbelief at the situation unfolding. Patrick commands his staff to send a letter to the priest immediately, but a servant reports that the priest is out of town for a month. Adi questions the wisdom of proceeding without the person in question present, but Patrick ignores him to focus on the delivery list. Adi expresses unease that the situation is blowing up into a massive ordeal while Patrick casually asks what is troubling him. Patrick places a firm hand on Adi's shoulder to steady him and demands his full attention. Patrick reminds Adi that they already have permission and insists that the only thing left is to manage the surrounding chaos regarding that Mary. Adi demands an explanation for the rush, noting how terrifying people with power can be, while Patrick confirms he has expedited the verification process. Patrick's composure shatters into panic as Mary walks in, wishing everyone a good morning and asking about the commotion. Patrick smoothly pivots to greet Mary, apologizing for the early morning disturbance while she eyes him suspiciously. Mary demands to know why there is so much commotion and questions his instruction for someone to make themselves at home. Mary reveals she has been watching them for a while and saw everyone looking to Patrick for instructions. She points out that he is handling paperwork and providing signatures despite being a servant, then demands to see the documents. Patrick breaks into a confident grin that confuses Mary and worries Alicia, prompting Mary to demand to know what is so funny. Patrick bows and apologizes for waking her on her day off, offering to cancel everything immediately while addressing her formally as Milady. Mary senses something is different about his demeanor but brushes it off, stating she has rested enough. She presses closer, asking directly what the paperwork is for as Patrick hesitates. Patrick gazes at her with intense seriousness, preparing to drop the bombshell. Patrick calls out to Adi, who looks panicked by the sudden spotlight, while Mary asks if the matter is serious enough to cause such expressions. Patrick takes her hand and states that the matter concerns him, leaving Mary confused and asking him to repeat himself. Patrick clarifies that the paperwork is specifically about him and her. Mary blushes furiously as the implication begins to sink in and she stammers his words back to him. Adi interrupts the tension by shouting that they are handling their marriage procedures. Patrick maintains a steady, confident gaze while Mary stares back in total shock as the realization hits her. Mary quickly retracts her request to cancel the work, stammering as she realizes Patrick's reference to Milady held a double meaning. Adi takes charge, ordering everyone to continue their work and urging Patrick to get moving. The adrenaline fades and Adi collapses to the floor in exhaustion as Patrick looks down and remarks that he knew this would happen. The maids rush in with food, asking if Adi has a stomach ache or is injured. The maids smile ominously as Adi nervously accepts the food and whispers that they need to escape the chaos immediately. Adi explains that marrying the Albert daughter is a logistical nightmare that upsets the social hierarchy and requires endless reports. Patrick calmly finishes signing documents, satisfied that everything is done for the day and noting that Alicia is already delivering the news to the royal family. She reviews the list and praises Patrick for his perfect execution, noting that he is as quick with his work as she expected. Patrick leans against the bookshelf in despair, feeling that things are proceeding too fast with quest individuals he feels unworthy to even approach. Noticing his distress, she comments that Patrick looks visibly frightened by the situation. Patrick quickly composes himself and changes the subject, addressing Mary directly to shift the focus. He asks when her day off is, and she explains that Elysiana has exams starting tomorrow followed by a break. Patrick shuts down a maid's interruption and orders Mary to rest during the exam break, causing her to call him a tyrant. He turns to leave with a satisfied smile and a casual wave, dismissing himself from the room. As the door closes, she turns her attention to Adi. Sensing that he has something on his mind, Adi becomes serious, stating that there is something important he needs to tell her while he still has the chance. He insists on secrecy, warning that it would be a problem if Patrick or Alicia overheard what he is about to say. Internally, Adi dreads that she is about to complain about the marriage or lecture him on their difference in social status. He sweats anxiously, bracing himself for a cold declaration that she will marry him but that there will be no love between them. Shattering his grim expectations, she whispers intensely that there is a leftover apple pie hidden in the kitchen. Adi stares at her in blank confusion, unable to process the sudden shift from serious romantic tension to pastries. She explains that she couldn't finish the special pie from the neighboring country and saved the last portion specifically for him. With a conspiratorial wink, she urges him to go eat it immediately before Patrick and Alicia discover the secret treat. Adi is left speechless for a moment before realizing with amusement that she managed to eat 3 whole portions herself. He leans in aggressively close, whispering that if she keeps this up, he will take her for himself instead of just the pie. Completely missing the romantic threat, she cheerfully gives him permission to go ahead and take it. Adi accepts her permission with a hidden meaning, vowing that he will gladly claim what is offered. She smiles broadly, offering him the apple pie and the title, while he silently corrects that he wants the pie in her. They link pinky fingers to seal the promise, establishing a bond that carries a different weight for each of them. Adi pauses as he looks at the small tart, double-checking that she really did leave it in the kitchen for him.